David Lichtenstein, and welcome to the Yeshiva Shalmaila. This week's program is Understanding the Differences in Hashkafah between Lubavitch, Chabad, and the Litvish world, Rav Shach. We spoke about this a few weeks ago. We got a lot of response. I promised a follow-up. We are going to have Rabbi Shapiro from Miami, Rosh in Miami. He was one of the 5 Chozrim of the Rebbe, a very greatly respected person in Chabad. We will have from South Africa, we will have Rabbi Noam Wagner. He's a Talmud of both the great Litvish Yeshivas, very interesting. He learned by the number 1 Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, the Machina was Rebbe Lashenka. He learned by Reb Chaim Mendel Bradsky, Reb Nachum's Eidim, Rosh in Toronto, and then he became a Chabadski and Rosh in Chabad. So he's a perfect person who could understand both the Litvish world and the Chabad world. We will be speaking to Reb Zalman Gifta, Rav in Tom's River, the son of the great Telz Rosh Yeshiva, Mordechai Gifta, who was a misnagid, big misnagid. See what he has to say. And then we will also be speaking to something that's never been done before. We're trying to figure out what impact do the Shiluchim have on their communities, and at the same time, what Mesiras Nefesh do they have to put up with to be in these many times remote communities. So we're doing something that's never been done before. We're speaking to 6 Shiluchim on 6 continents. From Asia, Siberia, we have Zaklos. He has some interesting things. I asked him, what do you do? He's in Siberia. How do you deal with 50 degree below zero weather? He's going to talk to us about how his family didn't eat milchiks for 7 years because they didn't have Chalav Yisrael for all our Starbucks, users. He's something fascinating. It's a few hour flight for somebody in the community there to go to the mikveh. He'll speak about how 35% of the 20,000 Jews in Novosibirsk he personally has a relationship with. Something astonishing. 7,000 people. Imagine if in America we were able to reach 35% of the 6 million Jews. From Argentina, Rabbi Tzvi Grunblatt, he'll be speaking to us. He covers a huge area. Bachrim who go to 80 cities where sometimes they travel to a city where there's 1 Jew in the city. And he has an interesting number. He says they cover, around between 100 and 200,000 Jews in in Argentina. And he says 70,000 of them they touched through Chabad. Something between 35 and 50%, or 70% of all the Jews in Argentina. Really astonishing. We will have Mendy Chitrik from Istanbul. Sheer fascinating story. He'll tell us a story about a Muslim Baba, right, who came to him with a tape. She said, my mother, before she died, left me this tape speaking in Yiddish. And the mother says she ran away from the Nazis from Krakow. She came to Istanbul. She married a Muslim. And here you have this woman, ungetan with this, with the ganze, the shmeine begadim, with the burqa, who's looking at her, and she says, Mendy says, you're Jewish, you know that, and your children. And he says, this year they and 8 of her descendants came to his Seder on Pesach. Really fascinating. Reb Moshe Raskin from Uganda, right, where he will tell us about, it's a 2-day drive, a 16-hour drive to go to a mikveh, or you could fly by plane. From Australia, Reb Chaim Tzvi Grunner, really a fabulous, interesting program. We'll discuss it both hashkafically. I think you will find it remarkable. I mean, the hashkafah that the Chiddush, and I think he's absolutely right, or possibly Reb Noam Wagner, when he says a new, totally remarkable and eye-opening divide between the Hashkafah of Chabad and the Litvish world. It's a must listen to. The interview with Rabbi Noam Wagner should be a fascinating program this week. It says in the parsha, "V'kara by kol yomei chayav." The Melech had a sefer Torah. V'kara by kol yomei chayav. Every day of his life. Some sefer has a really different view. He says no. V'kara by kol yomei chayav doesn't mean chronologically every day, but the Melech is supposed to look into the Torah and see in the Torah the story of his whole life. the story of in your life, certainly the Melech's, is in the Torah. You look at it and find your story. And the Melech is Liboy Levav Kol Yisrael. So we could say it goes to on us too. There's a story, it's fascinating. He says, if you look in the Torah, you'll find your story. They say that in the 1200s, Ramban was in Spain, and there was a Meshumid. His name was Avner, who made the Yidden terrible tzaras. And the Ramban had to frequently debate with the Meshumadim, with the Goyim. And this Avner had been a Talmud of his. So according to the story, and it's brought down in Sfarim, the story, the Ramban asked him, what made you become a Meshumid? He said, when you once said that everybody's name is in the Torah, and he said, I went home and I just started laughing. I said, that's so absurd. How could everybody's name be Merumas in the Torah? So the Ramban said to him, your name is Avner, you're a Meshumid. Omarti apeyem ashpisam me'enoish zichram. He said the second letter of each word makes Avner. Ashpisam me'enoish zichram. Omarti apeyem. They say that according to the guy became so shook up, he ran out and was never seen again. He left the country. But there is this concept in Yadus, and the Goyen writes about it at length, how each of us, our stories in the Torah, we just have to be Zeicha. On a different level, but it's sort of a different story. Sometimes we listen to the Torah, it's an antique document written sometime an infinity ago, an infinite number of years ago, before the world was created. Where do we find ourselves in the Torah? Rabbi Shapiro, he said, once told me, he said, you say, V'sein chalkeinu b'Torah secha. So Rabbi said, imagine if you say over a joke, somebody tells you a joke, and it's a very funny joke, and you laugh. The first time you laugh. If he says it over to you the next day, you don't laugh much. The third day, you think he's a Meshugana. You heard the joke already. But he said, imagine if you're the one saying the joke. You go home, you tell the joke, everybody laughs, you laugh. Then you go to the Hanukkah party, you say the joke, everybody laughs. Then you go Ben Gavra, Legavra, in Shul, which you shouldn't be speaking, or by the Kiddush, you laugh. And every time you really laugh. He said, what's the difference? So Moshe said, a person can get tired, of course, of a joke. Get tired of food. You give me the same banana for breakfast every morning. So a lot of people get tired of it. But one thing a person never gets tired of is where they see themselves, how they're relevant to it. And when you give over that joke one day to this crowd, the next day to another crowd, you never get tired of you as the one who is Meiser it. Where you are in the joke, where you are the Meiser of it, at that point you never become tired. So he said, when we're mispal v'seich alkeinu b'sarasecha. It's true, maybe learning could get boring, maybe parts of the Torah, but where you can find yourself in the Torah, where you find your Shirish HaNeshama, something in the Torah that speaks to you. It could be halacha, could be drush, it could be agada, it could be a particular mitzvah, it could be gemilas. There's something there, and when you find that, that's what mitzvah. Over there, you never get tired. So it's interesting. There's a story, very current. This Torah is alive and real, and it's about me and you. And it says that he had two Torahs, the Melech. There's the Torah that Kara by Kol Yemei Chayav, that he was machnes and maitzimai every place he went. And there's another Sefer Torah that was bebeis gnazav. What does that mean? There's a part of the Torah that's immutable. It doesn't bend. It's not related to anybody. It's Alfei Shnin, before the world was Oila b'machshavta, the Torah, right? There's a part of the Torah that is immutable, unchangeable. That's the beis gnazav. And there's a part of the Torah that's really your Torah and my Torah, and it reflects our lives. And we see people, there are tzaddikim who are able to bend with it. They understand how the Torah. Rabbi Levine was the father-in-law of Rabbi Yashiv. And Rabbi Yashiv used to say over this story, he said, his father, Rabbi Levine, was, I guess, the Menal in Eitz Chaim, which was the big yeshiva in Yerushalayim. Zalman was there. Most of the Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael learned in Eitz Chaim. Sadly, it's not anymore. So he said there was a hunger in the early, 19th century. My grandfather actually migrated from Eretz Yisrael because of that hunger. So he said one day a week in Eitz Chaim they used to serve pudding, some type of, I don't know, it was a bread pudding, a lakshin kugel, some type of a pudding, a kugel, I don't know what it was. And there was one boy, he came from a very poor family, which I guess many were poor. I guess he was the poorest of the poor. And he was very hungry. They gave him a portion. And he came back. He said, I need more. I'm just very hungry. So the cook said, I'm sorry, it's only one portion per person. He said, but I'm really hungry. And you have leftovers. He says, that's the rule. You know, there are people, the rule. So the boy got very mad. And he said, that's the rule. I'll show you the rule. And he picked up the pot and he threw it on the floor. And it went all over. And as soon as he did it, this is during the Yeshivah, he realized what a terrible thing he did. He ran out. So I guess the person who was in charge of it, they said, listen, you have to go home. And Rabbi Levine is coming on Thursday, and you'll talk to him, and he'll decide whether you're going to be permanently ejected out of the yeshiva. So he came back on Thursday. He was sittering, this little boy. And he goes into Rabbi Levine's office. He says, I was a young boy. And Rabbi Levine is sitting there. Rabbi Levine looks at him. He says, I heard what happened. He said, you must have been very hungry. So the boy said, yes, I was. He said, and Rabbi Levine said, and you must really like pudding. He said, yeah. He said, look. He opened up a drawer. He said, look what I have for you. And it was a whole package with pudding. He said, this is for you to eat. And this person ended up becoming, you could understand, an Erlich Yid, I don't know if he was Askin, a Goy Molchesen, whatever he was, but it moved him so much more than any patch could have done. There's the person who recognizes there's the Torah, and there's the Torah that's Machnasime B'Kol Makom Shaliach. There are people who have immutable Torah. I had a shul in Lakewood for many years, and one time, like I do now, I tried to get interesting guests. It was Sukkot, first night of Sukkot, and we waited 72 minutes between Mincha and Ma'ariv the first night. So we should have the Achila Balayla, make Kiddush Balayla, according to the Magen Avram, etc. So what happens? I wanted to find a guest, and who davened in our shul? The son of Reb Shol Brus, the Yeshiva of Beis HaTalmud. I said, could you get Reb Shol, your father, the great Yeshiva of Beis HaTalmud, to speak to you Mincha Ma'ariv first night? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, Lakewood, a town heard. It's a town full of Chachamim and Seifrim. They heard a big goyin is coming to save Russia. The shul was packed. It was from the rafters. The Chayvivei Torah came, the lovers of learning. So what happened? So he gets up. It's between Mincha and Ma'ariv. It's the first night of Sukkot. Everybody's like thinking of the Esrogim. They love him, the Sukkah. Reb Shol Brus gets up. You can hear a pin drop, and he says, the Shaila is Yesh Zika or Ein Zika. A very complicated sugya in Yevamis, the beginning of the second parak, Yud Chazayin, Yud Ches. And the ear went out over there. Oh, who wants to hear a shir on technical sugya Yevamis? And everybody, and I was just smiling. I said, to Reb Shol Brus, Yesh Zika. There's nothing more incredible in the world than the sugya of Yesh Zika. He couldn't imagine it. Sukkah, Yesh Zika, it's the whole olam, the eight saif is so there's the people who live in that immutable, and then we have leaders, and there's the Melech who's Leibel Levav Kol Yisrael. He has to have the Torah that is Machnesimai Kol Yemei Chayav. What do we say? The Gemara says, Ein lecha koyin ela shebiyamecha. And the Gemara says it for lechatchila. If you could go ask a shaila to Moshe Rabbeinu, or you could go ask a shaila to the Rav of your generation, what's the halacha? Ein lecha koyin ela shebiyamecha. And do you know why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't know anything about internet addiction. He doesn't know I guarantee you, Moshe Rabbeinu does not know about the smartphones, molestation, drug abuse. He wouldn't understand the level of divorce in our society today. Internet addiction, how would he understand? Ein lecha koyin. There's the Torah that you machnis, that's live, that's today, that you could be koyer by, that has your stories in it. Right? And there were great tzaddikim who understood this. They say over, coming up to the Yom Narayim, that the holy Baditchev Rav, he lived 250 years ago. There were no chedarim. There were people they couldn't afford to send their kids to cheder. They would starve if their kids didn't work. So this paya, this farmer, comes into the Shul in Baditchev, and he's illiterate. I mean, it's not that he doesn't know how to learn. He can't read or write. He can't say Hebrew. He can't. And it's Yom Kippur by night, and the Olam is screaming, and he doesn't know what to say. This farmer who lives on a darf, 12 months a year, except for the Yom Tovim, he would come like the Gemara and Megillah. He comes in from the Krach to daven on Yom Kippur. What does he start doing? He starts making animal sounds. Maybe he said bah, or maybe he said cock-a-doodle-doo, screaming like a rooster. So even though Baditchev, and it's Yom Kippur by night, and the great Baditchev, but people are people, and they start laughing. There's a guy standing there screaming cock-a-doodle-doo, waving his hands. So Baditchev turns around, he sees they're laughing. This is how Rabbi Zevin writes in the Sefer. He says, you should know, he tells the Olam, the gates to heaven were locked, and one man made a tefillah that was never heard before. It was a unique tefillah, and it opened up the gates. And he looks at the farm, he says, your tefillah was a tefillah that in Shemayim they never heard somebody say. So what is the Baditchev saying? He took out the second Sefer Torah. He took out the Einuch HaKayin Elof Yamecha, the Karabai Kol Yemei Chayav, the Sefer Torah that he's carrying, that the Melech carried all over. That was the Sefer Torah. And I'll tell you that my father's a Levrach, and I found a story in afterwards because today everything's written. He used to say over a story, again, in Yerushalayim in the late 1800s, 1900s, there was terrible poverty. People died on the street of hunger. A woman comes into Reb Shmuel Salant, the Rav Yerushalayim, and she's carrying a chicken, and it's Erev Shabbos. And if the chicken is treif, the family will have challah, maybe, on Shabbos and nothing else. And she sits down in front of Rosh and she says, I looked in the chicken and I can't find the murrah. The gallbladder, I think it is missing. And the Shulchan Aruch says in Yeridei, in like Siman Mem Test, that if it's missing, depends when. If it got lost, if it was disconnected before, it's treif. Afterwards, it's kasha. And the way to do it is you taste it and you see if it's bitter. So Shmuel Salant looked at her and he said, put your finger in and taste. So she puts it, he tastes it, he said, yes, Sibita, which is a play on words. When you ask somebody Sibita, you mean, how's life going? And she looked at him and said, Rebbe, oi, semiazoi, bitter. Life is so bitter. She says, oh, it's bitter? It's kasha. It's kasha. I don't know how he did it halachically. I'm mystified, but the story's brought. I heard it from my father, but he was using the second Sefer Torah. There must have been some cool that he had some tziruf, and he said, for this situation, the Karabai Kol Yemei Chayav, the Sefer Torah that he's machnis amoitzi was mechayev, a different type of halacha. So we have different lives. We have listeners. We're going to hear a Chabad Shaliach who didn't eat milchiks for 7 years because he's in Siberia, he couldn't get Chalav Yisrael. We have many who, if they wouldn't go to Starbucks at work, and the answer is, what's right? And the answer is, everybody has to look into their own Torah and see, what's the Torah, Kol Yemei Chayav, what's the best way they can serve, and what accommodations do they have to make for their particular avodah. Before we go to our guests of the week, I'm going to ask 2 riddles. So it says, Ki sivne bayis chadash, vasisa maka ligagecha, loisasim domim beveisecha. It's a din of a maika. So here's an interesting thing. Taisus and Chulin and Afkuf Hay says, you don't make a bracha asher kedishanu mitzvahs kriyashma by kriyashma balayla, because you don't make a bracha on something that's to prevent damage. And Taisus says the same thing. You don't make a bracha on mayim achronim. Mayim rishonim, we say asher kedishanu mitzvahs shadayim. Why don't we make al mayim achronim? When there was melech sedaimis, when it was me'ikar adin, not like today, according to the Ramah, Shaila, is it me'ikar adin, is it not? And different opinions, right? But then when they used to really do it, why don't you make a bracha until Shadayim? So Taisus says, as well as the Rambam, that something that's just to prevent the damage, how do you make a bracha for? Asher Kedushanim Taisus to prevent the damage? It's like, a bracha is something you anticipate, you're looking forward to. This is something that it's preventative of a damage. Whatever the svar of Taisus, that's how Taisus paskins. Fracture of Kivega. How could you make a bracha on mitzvah's Micah? The whole meaning of Micah is what? You shouldn't fall down. Somebody shouldn't fall down and get injured. And yet there's halacha that you make a bracha on Micah. Why do you make a bracha on Micah? Why is it different than a Tils Yadayim on my Machroinim? Or let's say what Taisus' case of Kriyash Malamita, which is to prevent Nezek. One Shiloh Lagabe Micah. Another riddle. It says, Lo yia bekischa evin gedoyla uktana. You're not allowed to have dishonest weight. In other words, you can't take, the baseball players, they would hollow out the bat, stuff it, close it, and it's illegal in baseball. The same thing in weights. When they used to use weight, a guy could take a 1 kilogram, hollow it out in the middle, put in something else, just gold plate it, so it's missing a few ounces. So halacha, and the Rambam Paskins Hilchos Gedei Halacha Gimel, you're not allowed to keep it in your house, right? Forget about using it. Of course you're not allowed to use it. Lo yilacha, or yilacha bekischa, you're not allowed to own such a thing, right? So the Rambam says it's a loisa say, but you're not like on it, because it's ein by maisa. So for the lav of lo yilacha bekischa, you cannot get malchus. Pashtus. It says if he says as a rule without no strechelach, there's no noise kalim, you can't get malchus a lav shem b'maisa. If you went out and you bought a bad weight, you have some guy in the street who's known, he sells the bad weights, you buy from him. You also wouldn't get malchus. Why? Because l'maisa it's aim by maisa. I guess he did it for you. I don't know. Whatever the case is, holding it in your house, possessing it is not a maisa, even though you brought it into your property. Question is. Chametz on Pesach, the Rambam in Perek Aleph is Chametz Amach Halacha Gimel says, if you have Chametz on Pesach, it's a lav shein by Maisa. But if you went ahead and bought it, it becomes a lav sheyesh by Maisa. You took into your rishus Chametz on Pesach. So even though Boyer says don't have it, not having it, but if I cause to have it, that's called lav sheyesh by Maisa. Here it also says don't have an evin gedola l'yeh bekischa min elektana. You cause to have it by buying it. Why by chametz umatzah is it a lav sheyesh by Maisa, and why by having gedola uktana by dishonest weights? It's not. It's a lav she'ein by Maisa. That is our second riddle of the week. At the end of this program, we will of course play the winner of last week's riddle. Let's go to our wonderful guests. We have on the phone with us from Miami, Rabbi Shapiro. He's Rosh and Yeshiva Gedol of Greater Miami for Chabad. He was also, many of you know his name, he was for many years a Magid Shir on Dial Daf of the Daf Yomi. He said many of the Masechtas. Welcome, Rabbi Shapiro.
Thank you.
So, Leibel, last week we had a Talmud of Rosh, and he said things that got, different. We got many letters and emails from Chabad listeners that they were upset. And they felt that there was nobody on to talk about, explain, the Rebbe's side, sort of the other side. We only had on this Rabbi Lederman from Bnei Brak. And we were hoping maybe, just want to be, we have a lot of listeners from Chabad, so we'd give you the opportunity to talk a little bit. You heard, some of the things he said. Maybe you could just give us another view.
Okay, so the first thing is I would like to say, speak about what the Rebbe was, the way we know it from the inside. What people hear from the outside is lav dafka, they know the truth, and what we hear from inside. So the first thing I want to say, and I hope that many people know this, but maybe some don't, and it's a shame that they don't, that the Rebbe was basically a Ge'an HaGe'enim in learning. A Ge'an HaGe'enim in Nigle, Poshet, Shasa Poskim, and also a Ge'an HaGe'enim in Kabbalah and Chassidus. A Ge'an HaGe'enim, you see it from the Rebbe's Svarim, you see it from the Svarim, which are basically Likutei Sichos, you see the Rebbe's Igros, you see the Rebbe's Rishimis, and there's so much Lomdas there. So it's a Ge'an HaGe'enim in all ways. It's a Ge'an HaGe'enim in Pekiyas, in Shas, Poskim, Bavli, Yerushalmi, and in Shuvas Svarim, and everybody, you see it brought down there. You see the Amkus, and you see the Rachvas. You see the depth. When you learn it, to somebody who learns, that wants to take a learn, to see, he sees the Amkus. You could see, actually, after you learn as what he called the Litvish word, Lashtikol Teire, push it in Lomdas, you could see how much through that you could be masbir so many sugyas. I myself give shiurim. Many of my shiurim are based on the ideas that the Rebbe says in the Siches, in Poshet, in Lomdes, like a legal shiurim, because there's so much amkis and so much rachves and depth there. There's so much pekiyas there. And I could tell you, I myself worked for a while on writing down what the Rebbe said and give it into the Rebbe to be magia, to edit it. So I saw exactly what the Rebbe was writing, and the Rebbe edited from all kinds of svarim, wrote, edit, and we know from a fact that the Rebbe would not write a maramokim or quote a sefer unless he actually got up to check the sefer inside. Now, it happened quite a few times, I remember, that he wrote a loshen from a sefer, but he didn't get a chance, Poshet, to get up and check it, so he would write to us, who were the ones that were preparing it, he would write, Levarer haloshen b'diuk. And there were many times he wrote the loshen, and he didn't look it up because he wrote it. That's why he wanted us to check it up to make sure it's b'diuk. It was kemat os ba'os, l'moshel. There was, once he quoted a loshen from Machzer Vitri. Who knows Machzer Vitri Balpeh? He wrote the loshen of the Machzer Vitri, and he wrote to us with the arrow, Levarer haloshen b'diuk, to see. And it was, I think maybe one half of his expression there, one letter was different. Once it was Hagos Maimoni that he wrote Levarer haloshen b'diuk. Once he even quoted a loshen from a sefer, the Sisei Lailo, from the Tzaddik HaKayin. Who knows the Tzaddik HaKayin Balpeh? He quoted the loshen and he wrote there, also Levarer. Now, other times he didn't write it because he checked it up, because he didn't, before he would write, he would check it up. So you see his bikiyas, and you see it from the sichos, that you see the bikiyas of what he has, and the rachves and the amkis in the hasborim in yonim.
Even though to be true, and he very rarely quotes any other Hasidic Sfarim in his Sfarim. Is that true?
Not true, because he does, but not so much. He does.
When I say not so much, but it's very, very few, right?
I don't know if very few. You see this, he quoted Loshen word by word.
I understand that, but I'm just pointing out that if you would look in I don't know, another contemporary sefer, they'll bring 100 achronim, right? He'll be once in 4 or 5 Maimarim, he'll bring another.
Achronim he brings plenty. He just doesn't bring achronim from Chassidus.
That's what I mean.
Chassidus he doesn't bring that much, but many times he does. He brings Neim Elimelech, brings Levi, Meiranayim. He brings, but not as much. That's not, everyone has their style of what they bring, but whatever is in the Geya, he brings. And in Achreinim, in Halacha, in Nigle, he brings even from people contemporary who are now alive. Baruch Hashem, he brings them too. So he brings a lot of these for him, and he explains a lot of inyonim, and he explains it with great depth. Now, the tzara is, why don't people really know that as much or learn that as much? So in my mind, the reason is because the Rebbe did not write a sefer on Shas, or a sefer on Rambam, or a sefer on Shulchan Aruch. All the inyonim is that he said by Fabrengens, and he wrote down the letters, and later when he was Magia the Sikh, he added ganze shticker of inyonim and biurim, he added. Now, in der Welt, when you take a sefer on Chumash, it doesn't look like a lomdish sefer, so you don't get the lomdis of it. And the way it's written, he didn't write a sefer, but all the inyonim that we have, that we take out, is from these svarim, like look at the Sichos, which is all on the Parshas HaShavua. And in that, you have the deepest lomdes with biurim in sugyas, in masbir ganze sugyas hashas. We know that when the great lomdim would come into Yeshivah, so the Rebbe, they would come out in his fall. I was a boch in Yeshiva for many years in the 70s. I remember when these guys would come out. And they would come out with the Rebbe with quote Arash in Oles, with word for word. He once had an argument on a loshen of Arash with Rabbi Hirschsprung. Hirschsprung came out and he was Arus from the Kalim. But people don't know about it because it's all he says Svarim, like in his letters. In his letters he has so much, but not a sefer. What's trying to be done is take out from all these Svarim, make a sefer, and they made some Svarim out of it, but the Iker is in these Svarim. There you see the great Ge'enes of the Rebbe. Sayin Nigle, Sayin Chassidus, Sayin Kabbalah, Sayin Drush, in Kol Teira Kula. And his Bikiyas was a Bikiyas that's from the Gan Againim. As far as his learning, as his time spent learning, so from when he was a kid, his Asmode was Ein L'Shayer. And this I know more personally. Why? Because my Zayde, my mother's father, was the Rebbe's teacher, the Rebbe's Malamed. In Continentswith, when the Rebbe was 7 years old. So he told me, that whenever they learned in class. Whenever there was, let's call it recess, they would go out. He would never go out. He would always sit and learn. He learned for every second he had. You see from the Rishimas were written in Europe by the Rebbe when he was there in Europe. So even when you see the dates on them, and no one even knew that he had it till after Gimbal Thomas. Then we found the Rishima. They didn't even know it existed. So he has the ganze Pulpulim and ganze Inyonim that he wrote when he was running away from the Nazis. In Lisbon, when he was on the way to his ship to leave Europe, you see the dates there. And Inyonim Poshet Bionim Ba'amkis in Inyonim Anigla, because he sat constantly and learned. They know people who visited him would come in and he would always sit and learn. Always. That was his whole thing, sitting and learning, not to waste a minute. And even after he accepted in the Siyas, the Rebbe obviously took away more time. So Taka, he felt bad about it. It's one of the things that he complained, actually. He put him Tovshin Yud Aleph, he complained, and by the Fabrengen, Chassidim stopped him, he started crying, and he said, I used to have more time to learn, now this takes away my time. Because the time of learning was by him the most important thing. And still, he learned most of the time. The time that he had Yechidus was 3 times a week, and that stopped also later. First 3 times a week for the first few years, then it became 2 times a week, then it became Ois Yechidus at all. So they stopped. People would write Zetlach. He would write hundreds, thousands of letters we have, but he didn't write them, didn't spend the time writing. He would dictate them, and the secretary would write them, and he would check them over. So all that didn't take that much time as people think, because if you look at, you see thousands of letters, and you see all these things that he wrote and things that he ran, versteht sich, a normal person in his mind, is that, he spent 95% of his day running it. So it's a completely different way. He gave heroes when people asked, but he didn't go to run it. Most of the day with Vase he spent learning. You would see people sometimes would even peek in when the window was open. You could peek in. You could see him sitting and learning. I myself once saw when it was at night and the car was waiting to take him home, and the window was a little bit open. I could peek in for a crack, which is chatoya and emaskir. I did that. I intruded on the Rebbe's privacy. But I looked in and I saw he was sitting there over a sefer ba'amkes as if a tracht, faton. And when it was time to leave, in 1 second he jumped up. Didn't like people, you finish, you close your safer, and the gate. Jumped up and ran out in a second. I had time to run away. He shouldn't see that I was looking in. He was there already, because every second was spent learning. After Hakofes, they saw the Rebbe learning Cheshem Mishpat. On Yom Kippur, in the break, they would see the Rebbe, the Maskirim, the Gaboyim would say later they saw him learning Gemara. I mean, this is something. He spent most of his time learning. Now, I can't say how many hours. We can't know, because see, other Rosh Yeshivas who learn a lot, Baruch Hashem, they're Yeshivas with Talmidim. So they have Talmidim, and they come to Yeshiva, they give a shir, and they stay in the Yeshiva, and they learn. You see them learning. So people see them learning. The Rebbe wasn't Rosh Yeshiva. He didn't give shiurim in Tubachim. He said in Yonim, in learning, in Pepulim, in Igla, in Chassidus, is through the Fabrengens and through his letters. So he was not in the public eye in that area. The only time he was in public eye is when people had to go speak to him, and that was Yechidus. But most of the day, he wasn't in the public eye. So all he was doing most of the time, he was sitting and learning. So
let me ask you another question. He said another issue that Rav Shach had is he said that many of the Olam, or some of the Olam, believed that the Rebbe was Mashiach. And he just said Rav Shach wrote letters about it. He was misnagid. He said nobody should give this type of impression.
Yeah, but I'm not getting into that. He said. I mean, it's in Lubavitch. It's not an issue anymore. And this is if anybody has a problem, we have the problem. It's not anybody else, and we know about it. And I don't know. This some people say it, and we don't want to get into that philosophy or not. And it's a zeitige Sache. That's not what Lubavitch stands for. When the Rebbe came out with the union of Mashiach, Poshet, he was mechazik the emunah of Mashiach like never was before. Poshet Rebbe did nifzoim to be mechazik Yiddishkeit. Now emunah Mashiach is emes and Yiddishkeit as much as the emunah in Tefillin, and how much you have to keep Tefillin. It's part of Torah. So the Rebbe every aspect.
It's more than that. It's one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim.
Exactly. The Rambam also is Gimel Ikrim. So it's not, and the Rambam says, in the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, which is, by the way, we just made the Sima Rambam 2 days ago, that in this Machzeh, in this cycle. So the last 2 parokim of the Rambam starts off, he says, and anybody who doesn't believe in him, or Eine Mechake Libiyoseh, Harei Ze Kefer, not only Kefer in Tanakh, Kefer B'Torah, if you don't wait for Mashiach. So the Rebbe was made this. So from that came out different things. But that's not the issue. To make a ikar of this is not. I know people chepazach, but I'm not getting into that. That's not the purpose here, and everybody could chapsachon and what they want. I can tell you the truth that as far as the Litvish Gdolim, from what I know, they were machshav the Rebbe very much. Like I said, I'm from Cleveland. I told you before, I'm from Cleveland. I was once standing with my father when Harav Gifter was talking to him. I was a young bocharol, and I heard him speak. And I heard what he said. He says to my father, they had complained that they send him siches, whatever, the yeshiva, they didn't like that. But he says, I want to tell you that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is von the Gdele Hador. Then he says to him, Ihr halt, as is der Godel Hador. You think that he is the Godel, and we think he's from amongst the Gdele Hador. But he should tell you, I'm telling you, it's the Gdele from the Gdele Hador. And he says, I heard a bocher in Yeshiva by us in Telz, and I heard it myself from him, standing there. Said something bad against Lubavitcher Rebbe, so I called him into my office, and I told him that you have to go to 770. He said, take off your shoes, with Mekabel Nizifa from Lubavitcher Rebbe. That's what he said. I'm saying, so it's clear to everyone. There were differences of opinion. No one's denying there were differences of opinion. I mean, his approach was completely different than everybody else. I don't know if any other Litvish Gdolim had that same approach. Maybe he attracted other people that followed him, but his approach was a yochid b'deira in I hate to say this word, his hatred to Lubavitch was completely extreme, which nobody was like that. I was very close, actually, to Rav Kamenetsky, to Rabbi Yankov. He used to come to Miami every year. He used to come to Yeshiva. And I spoke to him, obviously, when you speak, Lubavitch comes up, the Rebbe's name comes up. He told me once, I read the Allgemeine Journal in Yiddish. Every week there's a sikh of the Rebbe. Every week I read the sikh of the Rebbe. Sometimes I even have a oris. And he turns around to me, he says, Lamoshel, in Parsha Mishpatim, what did it say? There started reminding himself what the sikh was. So I told him, I don't know. So he says to me, you don't know the sikhs? So I said, I do know, but not from the paper. I know it from the Sefer. So he's thinking, reminded himself what it was. It was about Dalet Vehei, by Sheva say you have to pay Dalet Vehei, by Topach Mochar. So the Rebbe had the whole beer of what's the difference between Rabbi Yechon and Mazaki, whatever. So in fact, he told me he has a horror. And he told me, I daven for the Gesundheit of the Lubavitcher Rebbe every day.
So I'll tell you something interesting. In Shlomo Lawrence wrote an article, and where he wrote about Rav Shach's, issue with the Mashiach issue, and he writes in this story that when the Lubavitcher Rebbe got sick, he said Tehillim for him. And he said he doesn't have any personal thing. It's a machlokes and shita, but he has nothing. And he was mispal. He should have a refuah shalema. He said belev shalom. That's what Lawrence writes.
Okay, very good.
He was the closest to.
Because they recognized who it was. Actually, Rabbi Yankov once told me a pshat in a sicha. I asked him a pshat and Nigel sicha. The pshat in Landow there, and I showed him the sicha and asked him, I have a kasha on it. So he thought for a moment, and he says, I'm telling you the pshat. This is the teretz. He came to Yeshiva once, and I showed him, we were talking on the way in the car, we were talking about the Rambam, where the Rambam says that the Midaraisa, father has to teach his son Torah, Midaraisa. Other mitzvahs is on the Chinuch, the Rabbanan, but Torah is Midaraisa. Misha loy limdei aviv, someone's father didn't teach him. Right, that's a But what happens if loy limdei aviv? So the Rambam says, chayiv lelamed es atzmei kishayakir. So we were talking in the car, actually, and the way he says he never understood it, because when kishayakir, yakir means you're still a cotton, and you recognize that what Torah is. Should have been kishayakir. If his father didn't teach him, he has to go, why is kishayakir? So I told him that Tzemach Tzedek has in his Pirush on Rambam, in the Piskedinim, in that Sefer, has a beer on this. Yeah, it's a Machaya given. Came to Yeshiva, he says, weist mir dem Sefer. So I showed him the Sefer, and I showed him some Tzedek. Sounds like there's a beer there, whatever, he's Mavaya there. I got a call later, few weeks later, from somebody, my wife's an aunt, that she was by a Brisa, a Pidyon Aben, she says Rabbi Yankov spoke, and he spoke about a Rambam, and he said, Kol Yom HaYisim Mitztayah Pshat in the Rambam, till I came to Miami, he said, to the Lubavitcher Yeshiva, he said that I'll try to Lubavitcher Yeshiva, and I met Rabbi Shapiro there, and he showed me that Tzemach Tzedek that Mermachaya given. I'm saying that the approach was very, we know from previous generations also, but the Rebbe Avade, I know that Rav Yitzchak Hutner wrote to the Rebbe in Tzadurgir that actually learned the Chavrusa with the Rebbe. They say before the Rebbe became Rebbe, they learned the Chavrusa. Chassidus, I think. But all the G'daylim had the greatest respect for the Rebbe. This thing that Rav Shach did, that's a Yetzim and a Klal. I don't know, I don't think that the other people followed. Maybe people followed it, but Bechlal did the respect. Now, there were different Shittas. Yes, there were different Shittas. A lot of times different Shittas, and they have their Shitta. But mitzad, the Rebbe himself, we know they recognized, the G'daylim recognized the Rebbe's Lomdus. I know there was some, I don't know how he's recognized in the Litvish world, but Reb Chaim Zimmerman once got, as the Rebbe Shaila in something in one of the Mesiras in Kotchim. So he got an answer for the Rebbe, a few lines only with the Maramakemis. He calls up Rabbi Chadakov in the middle of the night, and he says, he used to speak very as a wild, so he said to him, Geh rein zum Rebbe und sag ihm, tell the Rebbe that Chaim called, and Chaim said, as et mechaye given in ganz Kotchim. And he said, you see, if the Rebbe said the Chiluk and Rishonim and Achreinim, they had one shita and ganz Mesichte, all the Inyonim went through that shita. Achreinim, everything, Zakasha Ter. Says by the Rebbe, you see, he has one Nekuda, and with them geht durch ganz Kotchim, ganz whatever. They recognize the Rebbe's Lomdus, but this is all besides the Rebbe's Kedusha. The Rebbe's Aish Kodesh, the Rebbe's Ibrigemkeit to the Eivishn, and the Rebbe's Ibrigemkeit to Klal Yisrael. Poshet Ibrigem, that Klal Yisrael meant this was his life. He had no personal life in anything. His whole life was the life of andere Yidden. You have Brochas Yidden and this. So he spent some time on this because you have to spend, just like Reb Chaim Mezer spent a lot of his time as a Rove in Askonas HaKlal, even though he learned a lot. And Reb Chaim, the Rabbanim in the Shtet always like that. So they learned, I don't know, they learned 18 hours or 16 hours or 14 hours. But they learned, and then you had their Askonas, and by the Rebbe, this was something, because he cared for Klal Yisrael. Every Yid meant, especially if you learn Apich Chassidus, and I don't know, those that don't learn Chassidus maybe have a different approach. If you learn Apich Chassidus, what's based on the Neshama? It's all based on Midrashim. It's based on the Pasuk.
Rebbe Leibel, it was an honor to have you on with us. And you should continue to be Marbitz Torah. And the Havas, I say one thing, the Keser Havas Yisrael from this generation, there's no suffix by me that Chabad was that Keser licked by Chabad.
And where does the Keser come from? It comes from the Rebbe. The Rebbe instilled in his Chassidim this Nakuda, that a Yid is a Yid no matter what. Just want to finish up with one interesting, the way you look at the Yid, that the ones that was a Psachosit from a different Rebbe came into Yechidus to the Rebbe, and he asked a brach with that. Then the Rebbe asked him, can you repeat to me a Psavort from your Rebbe lately that he said? So he said, yeah, the Rebbe asked a Kasha on the Gemara. The Gemara says that Afilu Pesha Yisrael Malay Mitzvah Skirimin. Afilu Pesha Yisrael are full of mitzvahs. So then my Rebbe asked, if they're Pesha Yisrael, how do you say they're full of mitzvah Skirimin? So the Rebbe said to him, I have the same kasha, but my kasha is, if he's full of mitzvahs Kerim, how do you call him Pesha Yisrael? That's a different outlook.
Gewaldig. A great Yeshikayach, Rebbe Leib.
Yeah, stuff our voice.
We have on the phone with us from Johannesburg, South Africa, Rabbi Noam Wagner, who's Rosh Yeshiva in Johannesburg, and he has a very interesting personal history. He learned in Cheder by Rebbe Lashenka in Yerushalayim, which is considered the best yeshiva ktana in Eretz Yisrael. I know it's the hardest one to get into. I know Rabbi Sharieli sent his son there, and when I learned in the Mir, Beryl actually learned with me in the Mir, it was considered the prime. All the Rosh Yeshivas want to get the Litvish Rosh Yeshivas want to get their kids into that yeshiva. Then he learned in Toronto by Reb Chaim Mendel Brodsky, who is the Eidim by Reb Nachum, also a very Chabrusa of mine, Reb Brodsky, a very big Talmud Chacham. I consider myself sort of a Talmud Chaver of his. And then from there he went to Oyalei Torah, which is Chabad. So he clearly is Arkevei Atrei Rachshe. He sits astride two different worlds. And we thought that he would be a very good person who could try to explain to us what would seem to be a dichotomy of Hashkafah, that in the Haredi world, both in Eretz Yisrael and America, most of the young Galite are encouraged to sit in Koil for very many years, and in Chabad they're encouraged Shlichus is the highest avodah. So we felt that Rabbi Wagner would help us to understand this dichotomy. It's an honor to have you with us. Welcome, Reb Noam.
Okay, so to start and understand, in order to understand any type of Shitta or Hashkafah, to go back to the beginning of it, and the beginning of where Chabad comes from is starting from the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe, and before that from the Baal Shem Tov. So if we wanted to look at the general idea, the first question is to look at what did the Baal Shem Tov do in the world? What was the Baal Shem Tov coming? What did the Baal Shem Tov come to introduce into the world? And then we can perhaps look at how that goes through the generations and where that expresses itself specifically in our time, the Shitta and the Derech of the Baal Shem Tov. One of the big things that the Baal Shem Tov came to bring into the world was the concept of Ahavas Yisrael. Not that it started from the Baal Shem Tov, it started from way back. The Gemara says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha," Rabbi Akiva Imer zeh klal gadol b'Torah, something which Rashi quotes already in Chumash as something which is a necessity to understand the concept of what it's all about. We have the words of Hillel Azakim, Zeu kol ha-Torah kula v'idach pirushahu, that the Ahavas Yisrael is the entire Torah. That's what it's all about. The rest is commentary, which is strong and powerful words. And that was always in Yiddishkeit. The Baal Shem Tov was something special, if we want to call it twist, in the concept and the idea of what it is. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov was, as a young child, he was orphaned from his father and his mother. And at the age of 3 or 5 years old, when his father passed away, his father said to him, "Yisraelik, there's 2 things that I want you to remember. I want you to love every Jew. I want you to, first of all, don't be afraid of anyone other than the Eibusher himself. And I want you to love every Jew with the entire flame fire of your neshama." The young Yisrael, the young Yasim, he took these words and he took this last will and testament of his father, he took it into his essence. He made it become his life. He began to live with these 2, if you want to call them luchos habris, for him, of Yiras Hashem and Ahavas Yisrael. That was the 2 things which he took as a young child into his very being, into his very existence. And it was later, as he grew up and he was taken into the Chabura, which his father was part of that, unbeknownst to him, but later he was, even before Bar Mitzvah, already taken into the Chabura of the Tzadikim Nistarim, and they began to teach him the secrets of Kabbalah, the secrets of the Eibusher. And it was at that time also that Achi Ashiloni, the Navi from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, the time of David HaMelech, appeared to the Baal Shem Tov and taught him the entire Torah and the secrets of the Torah. And it was at that time that the Baal Shem Tov, as a young boy of 15, introduced his Shitta, even while the leader at that time was Rabbi Adam Baal Shem. He introduced the Shitta, which was obviously accepted by Rabbi Adam Baal Shem, a new path in Avodas Hashem. For 3 generations, they were doing something in order to prepare for the coming of Mashiach, to disseminate the teachings of Kabbalah. Now the Baal Shem Tov brought in a new path, and the new path was the idea of Ahavas Yisrael for every single Jew, even for simple Jews. Which means don't only go amongst the Bnei Torah to teach them the greatest secrets of Kabbalah, but go amongst the downtrodden simple Jews and teach them the beauty of Torah and the beauty of mitzvahs. It was in the year Taf Ayin Beis, and they said Tavei Alecha Bracha for this amazing path of the idea of Ahavas Yisrael. That was the derech that the Baal Shem Tov began, a derech of loving every Jew and of caring and being involved with every single Jew. To the Baal Shem Tov, there came the greatest go'inim of the time, became students of the Baal Shem Tov.
Rabbi Noam, so you're saying that Ahavas Yisrael is something that the Baal Shem championed, and being that he championed Ahavas Yisrael, in other words, you're rolling it forward and saying that is what causes, that is the difference, and that is why Shlichus trumps learning in Kyle. Is that basically where you're going?
That's the beginning of it, but just to understand also how it developed. But yeah, that is the path of Chassidus that the Baal Shem Tov began. Here's
my question to you, okay? And by the way, I agree with you, because you see, let's say in the Baal Tanya, there are some really astounding things from the Baal Tanya. Here's a quote from the Baal Tanya, and I'm going to translate it into English. He says there's three Ahavas. There's Ahavas Hashem, Ahavas HaTorah, and Ahavas Yisrael. Right? And he says if you have one of them, you could have Ahavas HaTorah. It's not necessary that you have Ahavas Hashem or Ahavas Yisrael. But he said, but if you have Ahavas Yisrael, his exact lashon is, Ahavas Yisrael is Oila al Kulana. Right? Because everything is in it. If somebody has Ahavas Yisrael, the Meli has Ahavas HaTorah and he has Ahavas Hashem. So he says Ahavas Yisrael. This is a quote from the Sichos in Tafshin Hey. It's brought, but it's a quote in the Shem of the Baal Tanya. So if that's the case, you have a real dichotomy here between the Litvish world, and not only the Litvish world, maybe other parts of the Chassidish world, because I wouldn't say in Pshischa Ahavas Yisrael was such a cornerstone and like a Polish Chassidus, right? They don't speak about it much at all, right? But
speak about it also, but yeah, in action,
not a lot.
Yeah.
And here's another quote from another saying from the Baal Tanya, also brought in the Ikutei Sichos. He says that Ahafta l'reacha kamocha is a pirish ubir and v'hafta es Hashem aleikecha. Right? Here's another astounding one. It says, just like by v'hafta es Hashem aleikecha, it's b'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol ma'idecha. By v'hafta l'reacha kamocha, it has to be b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, v'chol ma'idecha. I mean, I can't think of any place and we have a lot of listeners, I'm sure they'll chime in. I can't think of any place in Pshischa Chassidus that there's a quote like this, or for that matter, I don't know Hungarian Chassidus, but I know Pshischa Chassidus, or in the Litvish world, I can't think of a quote like that V'hafta l'reacha kamocha has to be b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol ma'idecha. It's an astounding quote. And based upon this, if he's saying it's Oila al Kulana, that's the lashon of the Baal Tanya about Ahavas Yisrael. So basically, we have a very clear understanding. It's true that there's Ahavas Hashem, and there's tremendous Ahavas Hashem by Chabad. There's tremendous Ahavas HaTorah, obviously. But he says Ahavas Yisrael is Oila al Kulana, and if you have that, you have the other two. So that's where the main syllable is, and that's why they send the boys out to the distant parts of the world. I mean, pretty much that's the story, isn't it?
That's definitely, that starts the explanation and understanding of it. But if we can take it, just two things of realizing also that it's not to say that in the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov there's any minimizing chas v'shalom of Ahavas HaTorah and of learning Torah. I mean, it's something which just Chassidim like to tell stories. Just an interesting story. The Baal Tanya was one time speaking. He went to a place, I guess, a Litvish oilam, a non-Chassidish oilam. There was some of the go'inei adayr over there, and he gave a pilpul which was astounding, and everybody was very taken by his pilpul. And one person says to his friend, somewhere in the end of the room, he says, yeah, it's true, this one, he knows how to learn well. But the founder of the Shita of Chassidus, meaning the Baal Shem Tov, the way he expressed himself was an amaret. The Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, had a very sharp sense of hearing, and he quickly came over to me. He says, don't say that. He says, I'm going to tell you a pilpul that I heard from my teacher, the Maggid of Mesiras, from the Baal Shem Tov, that the Baal Shem Tov taught him. And he says, I can't even tell you the second half. The first half was a few hours. He says the rest is not even something which you'll understand or you'll be able to relate to. And there was the big, there then, it was the goyim of the people there. And just from the first half, the people just lost their, they couldn't hold on. The goyim that were there, they couldn't hold on to what it was. What
was the Torah he said, do you know?
I don't know the Torah that he says. It's not brought down. But the Torah was on inyanim of halacha, of nibla, etc.
Do you know what it was? And you don't know what it was?
I don't know what it was. I don't know if I would be able to understand it or help cope with it.
Okay.
In fact, what he said then was, he said it was a machlekes between Abaye and Rava. He said this is in the shita of Rava. He says in the shita of Abaye, it's something which you totally won't be able to understand, the explanations in the shita of Abaye.
Because it's interesting. It's interesting. I believe, and again, I'm not saying with Vadois, but I know that the Toldus, which is the main, the one who gave over the Torah of Baal Shem, right, has practically not a single Dvar Halacha from the Baal Shem. Like, I don't think there's two lines in the whole Toldus, like a Pilpul and Halacha on the Baal Shem. It's only on Drush.
He didn't give it over. That wasn't what was being given over, and that's also something which Bechal wasn't. The goyness of the Baal Shem Tov was an unbelievable goyness. And as well, I mean, the Magid wouldn't have gone to someone who wasn't a goyn Eilam. It wouldn't be something which he would, neither would have told us, neither would, these were goyim. They didn't, their outlook wasn't on people that was, the Magid was a Talmud Chaver of the Pnei Yeshua. And for him to go to someone, it had to be a goyin olam in Torah, in Halacha, in Gemara, etc. It wasn't the inning that the Toldus had to give over. There is things that are given over in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, but most of it isn't. Most of it, there's even in the Torah for the Baal Shem Tov, there's not much given over in general. Not in Kabbalah or in Chassidus either so much. Very short.
Whatever we have, we pretty much have from. Whatever we have, we pretty much have from the Toldus. So let me ask you a question. In notwithstanding these, and there's many other Maimorim, like the Balatanya and Perik Lamed Beis talks Barichas about Ahavas Yisrael. I mean, there's many other, we could quote about Ahavas Yisrael in Chabad, but notwithstanding it, until the last two Rebbes, right, there was, by the Balatanya, there was no Shlichus. By the Mittler Rebbe, there was no Shlichus. By the Tzemach Tzedek, we don't find Shlichus. By the Marash, we don't find any Shlichus. It became pretty much, it was after the Rayatz and the last Rebbe, right? So, is it possible that, Chabad stands for Chachma Bina Das. And in early Chabad was a generations of Goinim. They were great, Lumdim. They called them Maskilim in Chabad, right? And you had the people like Rabbi Isaac Hamala. They wrote, they wrote beautiful svarim, but it was known for its intellect. But under the last two Rebbes, it became, instead of Chabad, it became more Nahim, and it became much more Malchus. It became much more Lamaisa. So first of all, do you recognize, is that an accurate, difference? And if it is it possible? And I want to suggest the reason. I want to suggest that Ahavas Yisrael changes. When people are hungry, somebody who's an Ohev Yisrael opens a food kitchen, right? So it depends. In the times of the Balatanya, where Haskalah was sweeping the world, so the hunger was loy rav al alechem v'loy tzam al amayim ki mushmei dvar Hashem. So the shlichus was to learn and to steig and to vaksay salamdin. In the last two generations, where you have such the amount of freie people in the world, where the fruma have become mamish a miyut sheyesh b'mamish, more than 6%, but it's a very small miyut. So then the Ahavas Yisrael changes into to go out and be matzel people who are drowning. So whereas Chabad's, what they do may have changed, and I'm just saying this as a postulate, I'm not an expert, but the essence of what it was, which is Avos Yisrael, was just where the what Ahava is Mechayev at that particular moment. Is that possible?
There's definitely truth to that. I mean, the idea of Avos Yisrael, Shlichus was always there by all the Rebbeim to an extent. The concept of Shlichus was to spread Chassidus. That was the main point at that time, to go around, to go to people, to go to places, to spread the teachings of Chassidus. When the need became a different need, it's a mitzvah she'efshar la'aseh so yidei achedim. The Rebbe said that really our shlichus is spreading chassidus, but the fact is that you can't really spread chassidus to a person if he's not putting on tefillin. If he doesn't have the basics. So you got to start from the beginning. To start from teaching him kisira aram. It says in the Medrash, kisira aram v'kisisai v'aniyim merudim tavi bayis. It says kisira aram. It explains the pasuk. Aram means someone who's undressed. He's unclothed from mitzvahs. He's missing. He doesn't have talis. He doesn't have tefillin. The kisisa, you should give him a talis and tefillin. There's a war in the world where people are lacking it. But if you look even at the deeper the meaning of Avos Yisrael, it's not just Avos Yisrael as an idea. Avos Yisrael and the whole concept of Chassidus, for one, it's almost like the difference of the three generations before the Baal Shem Tov and the Baal Shem Tov. They were spreading more Kabbalah and the yanim of learning, and the Baal Shem Tov saw in his time the need is to be mekadev every single Jew to Yiddishkeit and Teda Mitzvah. So the concept is there also. But the general idea, the outlook, is the purpose and the mission of the world. What are we here for? That's why Chassidus, the Rebbeim, and especially the Rebbe, has such a big kach in Mashiach. Because Mashiach is the purpose, the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is that there's Jews that need to be brought to the Eibishter in order to make the world ready, the Sakin Olam, the Malchus Shindalit Yud, that the whole world should be ready to accept Hashem's kingship. And in order to do that, you got to go out there and bring them to it. So, of course, the thing that you use Chabad, you use Chassidus, you use the ideas of Chassidus, you use the concepts of Chassidus, you have to learn it and study it and know it, because if you don't have what to work with. But the thing that you're doing is you're taking a Jew and you're preparing the world for Mashiach, preparing the world for its purpose, for its goal, for what it's all about.
Right. So you would agree, as somebody who's a Talmud of both Litvish Yeshivas, start off and then Chabad, that this is a very strong and clear differentiating factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Reb Naya, go ahead.
Yeah. Although it doesn't take away Chas v'Shalom from the necessity of learning Torah, because Gadol Talmud shemevilu de'maisa. You study, you bring to action. And in halacha, there's also the idea that a mitzvah she'efshar la'aseh so yidei achedim overrides even learning Torah, when nothing else overrides learning Torah. Kol chafatzecha lo yishvuva, but mitzvah she'efshar la'aseh so yidei achedim is something which there's people drowning. You've got to go out there and take care of them.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Rabbi Noam. And we do agree. We're saying that by the Litvish world, Avos Yisrael is important, and by Chabad, obviously, Limud Torah is important. It's just a question of mi barosh. And here we see, I think, a very clear chilek. Rabbi Noam, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Bye-bye. We have on the phone with us from Lakewood, New Jersey, Rav Zalman Gifta. He's the Rav of Kal Nesivos Mordechai. He's the son of the Avdol ben Achayim, the great Telzer Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Mordechai Gifta. Welcome, Rabbi Gifta.
Shalom Aleichem.
So it's well known, Rav Gifta, that your father was a misnagid to Chabad.
Correct.
And your father was an Adam Gadol, and I'm sure it wasn't out of any type of a personal negias, but it was some type of a Hashkafah. Could you, last week we had on somebody was a Makurav to Rav Shach. It's honestly hard to get English-speaking people in Eretz Yisrael close to Rav Shach who could opine in this. Could you try to lay out to us what was your father's hisnagdus?
Okay, we will try. Number one, I want to point out that my father's Hisnagdus did not come about like many others Hisnagdus after Avshach spoke out against Chabad. My father spoke out against Chabad long before Avshach even spoke out against it. Now, I also want to make Hagdama that my father's Hisnagdus was not at all personal. So much so, even though it is world known that he was misnaged to Lubavitch, he wrote letters to the Lubavitcher Rebbe asking him for Mar Mekaymis in the Tzemach Tzedek. In fact, in the last volume of Nesiras Mordcha that we printed on Bava Metzia, it is brought down there. My father wrote it, that he just received a letter from the Rebbe telling him where the Tzemach Tzedek was, because my father saw the Tzemach Tzedek years before and wanted to know where it is. So this is just to prove there was no personal agenda over there.
Now, I understand that when the Lubavitcher Rebbe was sick, he was mispal for him.
That I don't know.
Okay.
I can tell you a very interesting story. As you mentioned, that it is well known that my father was a big misnagid against Lubavitch. When my father was in Eretz Yisrael for almost 2 years, in 1977 to 79, to build the Telz Yeshiva in Kiryat Telstone, and then Rebbe Saratsky, my father's shutav, passed away. The Gedolim told my father, as much as he loves Eretz Yisrael, he is obligated to go back, because if he will not go back, the yeshiva in America will fall apart. My father had a friend, a Lubavitcher, Reb Chaim Gutnick. Reb Chaim Gutnick from Australia, the world knows of Reb Chaim's son, Yosef, the big Gvir, but Reb Chaim Gutnick was a friend of my father back from the days of Telz in Lithuania. In Telz, Lithuania, the Bochurim used to learn Tanya. That my father told me. He learned Tanya when he was a Bocher in Telz. And they were friends, and he came to my father in Telstone, and he told my father he's here as a Shaliach from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe heard that he's considering closing the yeshiva, so the Rebbe sent him with the shlichus to tell him that if he's closing the yeshiva because of financial reasons, he should not close the yeshiva, and the Rebbe takes full responsibility of all finances, and my father should continue doing the Habotzes Torah that he's doing. This was an unbelievable story to hear, that the Rebbe would come to assist my father, even though he knew that my father was an anti-Chabad and spoke out numerous times against the Rebbe. I remember my father telling me that in the 50s, the Lubavitcher Chassidim came to my father 2 times, and one time they told him, the Rebbe speaks to the Frierdiker Rebbe. So my father said, yeah, aber hast du gehört, wie redt zurück zu ihm? My father told me when he told them that, they wanted to kill him for saying that. That was one story. Another story was they came to my father, that there was a magazine that came out then, a national magazine, and called the Rebbe the St. Francis of Assisi of our times. And they showed this to my father. My father told me, af pass das Tage. Okay.
So what was his misnagdus? So you're saying, notwithstanding this nagdus, he offered to support the yeshiva when it was in danger. But what was your father's misnagdus? Okay,
so I have a letter that my father wrote to Reb Simcha Elberg in 1964. 1964, my father wrote him that he saw the Hapardis of Teves of that year, and Rav Elberg wrote a big mimer praising Chabad. He says, I see your article that you write about the greatness of the Lubavitch movement, and you say how great they are, that they're building great centers of Torah.
Right.
So my father takes him to task and tells him, I don't understand you. Is that just because you learn Tanya with young people that do not understand a parsha in Chumash? To that you will call that centers of Torah? A yeshiva for Aleph Beis, which calls itself Yeshiva, do you have a right to call that a center of Torah? Then he tells him, if Lubavitch would use their ability to put back Torah the way Torah was in Lubavitch in Europe, the goyness of the Lubavitcher Rov and the Tzemach Tzedek, then I'd be very happy. But they have taken all of the goyness of the Lubavitcher Rov and the Tzemach Tzedek and removed it from their whole group, and all they are busy with is Miftzerei Torah of mitzvahs. That has become the essence of Chabad, and that is not what it's supposed to be. Then he takes him to task for praising him about Yad Kislev. He said, what is it? How can you praise Yad Kislev? Just because the Rebbe came out of jail, you go make a whole Yom Tov out of it? We know that we had our Gadol, Rabbi Leibel, was also in jail, and Rabbi Simcha of Dvinsk said that when they were taking Rabbi Leibel to jail, Rabbi Leibel was not in this world. He was up in the heavens above. And even so, when he came out of jail, we did not make a yont of it. This is not the derech of Torah to make yomim tovim of such a thing. Up to so much so that we should say that the Yom Tov of Yad Kislev is the source of all other yomim tovim which are even mentioned in the Torah. This was a letter my father wrote in '64.
Okay, so let's go through it. Let me take the last point, and then we'll go through it point by point. You're saying it's not the derech to make a yom tif on a nes of a hatzalah, right? I mean,
it's not to make a nes of hatzalah. If you, a person's mechuyev when he has a hatzalah to do it, but make it the yom tif of Klal Yisrael, that is not Torah.
Wait. The best that I know of, Chabad didn't make it a Yom Tov of Klal Yisrael. They made a Yom Tov for Chasidei Chabad. They didn't make it for Chasidei Satmar, Chasidei Belz, for Talmidei Lakewood. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks so, right? So they made it for Anshe Shloim. They made it for what they called Anash, for their own Chasidim, which is, I'm just curious. I mean, Satmar has a Yom Tov on the Yom HaTzalah. Belz has on the Yom HaTzalah. But let's go from Halacha. I mean, your father was an Ish Halacha, Mr. Hatelza. I mean, it's well known that the Mishnah Berurah in the Tafresh Peivav brings the Magen Avram, that brings that Bnei Yair that happened to them a nes. They're supposed to make a Purim, and the Chaim Sofer brings from the Maram al Shakar. He brings that it's a Gemara, the Gemara in Hakol Ma'arvin, that says that the son of Reb Tzaddik, the famous Reb Tzaddik, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that he should. He says that son of Binyamin, he made a Yom Tif that they kept in the family for 500 years, an entire Yeshiva, that they got the Atzei HaMaracha, right? So some Sefer says it's brought in the Magen Avram, and there are numerous communities. Magen Avram himself brings. There's the Purim of Fasano, the Purim of Yemen, the Purim of Incento, the Purim of Livorno, Purim of Saragossa. I mean, this is Beharare Kodesh, this concept. So what's so surprising about it?
So the answer to that is because when Chabad made it Yad Kislev, they have put publicity onto Yad Kislev that this is Rosh Hashanah Chodosh and Moyed Kol HaMoyadim. Through this Yom Tov of Yad Kislev, comes the or for all other Yom Tovim which are written in the Torah.
Where do you have that nusach from? I'm curious. Where did you get that nusach from?
I'm reading this nusach from the nusach of the letter that my father wrote. So obviously my father saw it in his mimer.
And it's the Yom Tov that all the other Yom Tovim come from?
Moyed kol hamoyadim shedarkei derech moyed ze shoifeya or kol hamoyadim.
Okay, you see, and it's interesting because I have a letter here from the Baal HaTanya where the washing is Ze hayoim yukfa lemoyed tzmidi b'Yisrael asher bo yiskadol v'yiskadish be'rabba v'yisayru alfei levavis Yisrael b'tshuva v'avodah shebelev. And he doesn't mention that in this letter that goes back 200 and some odd years from the Talmidim of the Baal HaTanya. So it's interesting that 250 years later they changed the nusach of the letter of the Baal HaTanya.
The Lavdafka, they changed the nusach, but they added, and they how they prava Yad Kislev.
Okay, so that's certainly that language, which isn't in the letter that comes from the Baal HaTanya. Certainly, I'll ask the Hasidic Chabad whether, Chabad is a very large group. I mean, it crosses 5 continents, and it's probably hundreds of thousands of people. And like all large groups, there are splinter groups and splinter groups, So the question is finding out what is genuine and what is, you picked up a letter from some splinter group. Would you agree with that? But if it's just a Yom Tov that they made for themselves, like
then it wouldn't be any different than the Nesatzal of Satmar.
Okay, so now your father was mistaged to the way they learn in Chabad. That was your first point that you made. He said it's not like they made in Russia, right?
Correct.
Now, would you agree that? And I'm speaking as an outsider, so if I'm offend anybody, please be mindful me. That to a great extent, the mission of Chabad as a Chassidus has changed after the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he turned it into a Chassidus. Sort of, he saw them as the goal is to stop, the 90% or 85% of Yidden that are disappearing off the world. I mean, from what I understand, there are hundreds of Moistis of Chabad in Russia.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know of a single Satma Moisid, a Belza Moisid, a Mira Moisid, a Lakewood Moisid, a Telza Moisid in Russia, right? So he changed he changed them into, from, Hasidim who, all the other Hasidim, they go to the Rebbe, they go to the Tish, they make Rikidis and this and that. Chabad, the warriors, they go out into the world and they're, from a young age, they're supposed to reach out to the Chassidim, like the Lubavitcher, we said, the people who are being nitzvah in the yam of Tum in the world that are disappearing. So, yeah, it's very nice to want to say, let me sit and learn Tzvi and Nesivis and finish Shas. But like the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, he said, when your brother's house is burning down, you don't say, let me learn another Blatt Gemara. Is it possible that the mission of Chabad, because what he saw as a Nes Hatzalah that's going on, and is certainly very, in my opinion, it's become greater and greater, this Kol Gadol V'lo Yosef, that the mission has changed, and maybe those who don't recognize it are missing the entire message here?
I wouldn't put it that way, but this that you say that the Rebbe changed the mission of Chabad is 100% true. And then again, Rebbe Aaron gave up who knows what for Hatzalah, right? Rebbe Aaron didn't start Lakewood Yeshiva till a few years after being in America because he was busy with Hatzalah. So Rebbe Aaron also gave up. The question is, who is the one that is ro'i to go ahead and do these kind of things? If you take kids that don't know anything in learning,
respectfully, Rabbi Gifter, Rabbi Aaron's Hatzalah, he was matzel yeshiva bachrim that was stuck in Europe, in Shanghai, etc., right?
Correct.
He wasn't busy with the Freya, right?
But the question
is how... And to the best of my knowledge, Lakewood does not have a serious Kiruv movement, right? Nor does Telz. So here is the one.
Right.
So this is the one group in the entire world. The one group in the entire world that there's a fire burning in the world, 70% intermarriage rate. And is it possible that somebody said, yes, we would have liked to make, like in Europe, the big, Ovdei Hashem and the big, Lumdim, etc. But when people are drowning, learn what you have to learn and then run out and start saving people who are drowning. So is it possible that the whole mission changed?
I understand what you are saying, Reb David. I understand what you're saying, but the Gedolim didn't look at it that way. Could be what you're saying is the Rebbe's outlook, and therefore he said that, but all the other Gedolim held that is not the way to do Kiruv.
Wait, who is doing Kiruv now? I met a guy, he lives in Siberia. George Rohr told me a story. He said he sent a Shaliach to Siberia, and he said, and they called him up. The head of the community in Siberia called him up. He was like, Mom is shaking. He said, you sent a boy here. He's 25. The girl is 24. When they were here for 2 weeks, the first thing they did is they bought 2 plots in the Beis HaKfaris in a city called Muz, someplace in Siberia. He said, where do you find people like this? So is it possible that they're dealing with it's a different type of we can't even stell sich zu. How do I, from my comfort of my home in Muncie, stell sich to a guy who bought a plot with his wife, 25 and 24, in Siberia? I met at the Shliach from Siberia. He said in the winter it goes down to minus 40. What do you need to be matzliach in these places? And how do we
right.
And how do we say maybe you didn't learn enough tzais in the sivas? I don't know how we even ask the question.
You are right. It's not for myself or for yourself to ask these questions, but we are taught that we go with Das Torah and the Gedolim, right? So therefore, if we have the Gedolim, everyone besides the Lubavitcher Rebbe that held different, so we are mevatel our das to our Gedolim. They had a taina.
And do you understand why the Gedolim? Do you understand why the Gedolim have not made reaching out to the drowning, millions?
Okay, now there's this open curtain where they take Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky every year to Russia, right? You have to ask them. I never spoke to them. What is the ratio of their success versus Chabad's success in Russia?
Now, what we would consider Kiruv is it's fair to say that there's differences. Some say Kiruv is when he puts on a shtreimel, a bekisher, or a black hat. Somebody says Kiruv is somebody who sends their kid to a Jewish day school and isn't Michal Shabbos and says the wife goes the Makbar and Taras HaMishpacha. So there's different levels of Kiruv. But I don't think that many people would disagree that the Rabbim Heishiv Meyavain is in the hundreds of thousands of people, and they touch millions of Yidden a year. I mean, look, you come from Lakewood, right?
Tom's River.
Whatever. They were dancing in the street when Rabashkin was freed, right? The biggest single. There was recently the biggest one who had the biggest yard in it was the son-in-law of the president, Jared Kushner, who became Mekurev to Chabad in Harvard of all places. So I mean, their impact it's not deniable. It's massive. So is it possible that Einachanami they learn differently? But in the army they learn differently than they learn in business school. It's a different limud HaTorah.
That point you're right about, but then again, there is a certain bittul that they have that this is what you're supposed to do and nothing else. If there'd be an actus of Klal Yisrael that we are doing this and we're letting you do the other things, and we don't have a problem that you're not with us in our kiruv, and we recognize you for what you do, things would look different. But it's not like that, right? A Lubavitcher, everything has to be Lubavitch. Listen, I daven in Bells over here because Bells is right next to me. I mean, it was an eye-opening once I came here. Coming from Cleveland, I had no idea of what to expect. I thought, okay, Bells, it's your thing. The unbelievable, the pleasantness that the people have, how the metapel ish b'chaveiroi. It's unbelievable.
Wait, so this is a new point. What is your point now?
Why the Gedolim are against Chabad? Chabad is a one-man show.
We're trying to figure it out. That's the purpose of this conversation. You said the Yom Tif, which you quoted a lashon I have to be mine into. I never heard it before. And the Derech HaLimud. And what other issues did you think your father had with Chabad?
Those are the two big issues. Everything surrounded around Torah. And if you change Torah, that's a no-no.
Mm-hmm. Okay, did your father have any issues with the Rebbe's emphasis about Mashiach?
I cannot tell you about it, but he definitely did.
Do you disagree with the incredible effect? Who since who in the history of Klal Yisrael has brought more people back to Yiddishkeit in the history of Klal Yisrael? Could you name a figure?
I don't know what he brought back in the history of Klal Yisrael.
He brought hundreds of thousands of people back to Yiddishkeit, right? I spoke today to a guy in Detroit. He said he sent his kid he's a hedge fund manager, he sent his kid to a Chabad Yeshiva. He became religious. This morning, okay. Who in the history of Klal Yisrael, I'm talking about from Moshe Rabbeinu till today, has been goyrim to have more people return to Yiddishkeit than the Lubavitcher Rebbe? And if the answer is nobody, right, shouldn't we say, you know what? Let's not mess with success. There's no road, there's no trod path for this. There's no Shulchan Aruch on how to bring Makar of people back. You know, you figured it out. That's fantastic.
Okay, so I understand your point, but my answer to that is, right, I follow Das Torah, and my Das Torah tells me that is not the derech. Now you're going to question, but there's these wonderful payers that Chabad has done, so therefore we should all go. No, our Das Torah has told us this is not the derech HaTorah.
I can't argue with Hashlech Yehavchel Hashem. I'm just asking you, when you see such incredible payers, what is the hisnagdus? So I can't answer like, we should be following. Now, let me say, your father's said that the Rebbe used to go speak to his father by the keva, right?
No, the Hasidim came.
And did he think there was anything wrong with speaking to his father by the keva?
Anybody that goes to a keva does that, right? But how did the Hasidim take it? The Hasidim took it that he is able to converse with the Rebbe. Meaning, there's a conversation taking place. Not that I'm mispalel, like we go to a tzion of a gadol, that the schus of the gadol should help me, that my tefillah should be makubal. I'm not having a conversation with the gadol. The gadol is dead. Okay? The Rebbe Shver was dead. The Rebbe didn't talk to his Shver. But that's not the way the Hasidim looked at it.
But respectfully, Rabbi Gifta, did you ever hear of the Sefer Mana Lashain? It's from Kadmonim. The Pri Megadim brings it down already.
No.
It's the Pri Megadim. It's the Sefer of Tefillos, the first Sefer of Tefillos by the Beis HaKvaris, and the Pri Megadim brings it in Tovkuf Peyalef, in that zip code, right? By the way, it starts with a Gemara. The Gemara says just a few parshas ago, Kalev went to the Kivrei Yavis, and he said, Avoisai bikshu rachmim bavuri. He spoke to the Avis. Here's the tefillah of the Mana Lashon that says, you say by the Magen, and the Pri Megadim brings in Shulchan Aruch, Shalom alayich adeneinu mereinu v'rabeinu, alayich hashalom, b'shalom tanuach al mishkavcha. He's talking to the mace. Magen Avram says, you see from this that he could talk to the mace himself. V'afloited star b'tzaras krevecha, shchinas ti. It's a whole tefillah talking to the mace. Ubasi heina el beis menuchasayich, ulamakim kfurasach l'shtaltech al kivrach, levakesh mimcha lehispalel ba'adi elalekecha v'tzurecha. I'm coming to you, right? To lamakim kfurasach, that you should be mispal ba'adi, and to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Right? And the Magen Avram brings it, and I saw recently that the Minchas Yitzchak says that the reason we put kvitlach by the kaver of a tzaddik, right, is that the tzaddik should read the kvittel based upon this Magen Avram and this, and be mispal for you. So even though the Mishnah Berurah brings a Maril that argues, Ramesh already talks about it. He says there's a machlekes whether you do or don't talk. Do you say to the do you mispal the discourse of the nifta, or are you being mispal to the mace? You're davening at the mace to the mace. Please, you're begging him. Please go be mispal fnei kainech el tzurich el leikayach vel tzurich, like the man of Lashon rings. So this is already an old machlekes between the Magen Avram. The Bach already says there's two different minhagim. You could do as you do, and you shouldn't be mevatel this minig. So there's an old custom that goes back all the way till Kalev, which is 3,500 years ago, to be mispalled by the caver of a tzaddik, that he should be mischaner in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So why would your father have a problem if the Rebbe spoke to his shver?
Again, my father had a Messiah from his Rebbe, right? And his angenommen in the Litvish Welt is that we don't do that.
I mean, the Magen Avram was a Litvak, you would agree, no?
Okay. So,
and it was the Bach, I think.
The
Bach was a Litvak too.
The guy says you shouldn't even go on a basic course, right?
I understand it. So even by the Litvaks, I'm saying there's the Bach is given a Litvak, right? He was Ravin. The Bach was Ravin Brisk. Brisk is certainly a Litvish place, right?
1,000%. Right?
I'm saying even among the Litvisher, you have, but Litvisher, the Pri Megadim was certainly not a Chassidish Yid. He lived in Germany, right?
But what's angenommen today? What is mekubal today? Right?
Okay. Well, even today, the Gris Moshe in Chelik Hay brings these two opinions, and he's not machriya. He says everybody should do the way their minig is.
Okay, so you're trying to tell me that the Lubavitcher had a different minig?
Yeah, and it goes back to all the way to Kalev. It goes back to the Gemara in Site there, right?
Okay.
What other hisnagdisin did your father have that you know of?
Well, we all know that they didn't hold of his talking about all this Mashiach, right? Letting people think that he's not dying, and he didn't die, right? There was a movement that he never died, right?
Yeah, but I think that if we're honest, right, you know, we had a Talmud for Rav Shach last week. He said that Shach thought after the Rebbe was nifta, people would go off the derech. That's obviously absurd. And yes, Chabad is very large, and there are people who believe, you know, that the Rebbe is alive. But it's such a miyuted. It's not typhus any makam over there. And I would venture to say the Chabadskis consider them just like, you know, when you have among your crowd, you have hundreds of thousands, you have Balei Tshuva too, you have all kinds of oddities with Klappenzich too. But I don't think that there's anybody in Chabad who will say with a straight face that this is anybody who has any respect or is really, it's just such a big Hasidus that has every, I'm sure there are people who believe in the Flat Earth Society there too. But this is, you know, these are all fringe groups.
Good, but whatever, it's nothing new that when the Rebbe was alive and well, he was a Das Yochid among the other Gedolim. That you agree upon, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would also ask you, can you think of anybody since Moshe Rabbeinu who had a greater effect on being Makarev, the Hamoin, you know, people who were away, people who were separated from our world, back to Yiddishkeit, like the Chabadsker Rebbe?
I want to ask you a different question.
Name one. Just name one. I challenge you to name one.
I can't name you anybody in here. Okay? Take Moshe Feinstein, right? He was the Pesach Hador, no question about it, right?
Right.
Okay. There was never in the two of them getting together until, for some reason, Moshe went to the Rebbe, which the Litvish Gedolim had tinus on Moshe for doing that.
Right. So what did you ever see the letter Moshe wrote about the to the Chabadsker Rebbe on the I forgot what the event was. His wife's yard side or something. A very beautiful letter where he calls them Goy and Olam with all the titles he writes to him. Do you see the respect he had for him?
I never saw it, but I can believe it. Right? The Yid was a Rizik Talmud Chacham. There's There's no shayla about it, right? But the
let
fact
me,
is, he didn't mix with anybody else, right?
Okay.
In Klal Yisrael, the Gedolim were always together. He separated himself. Even in Russia, the Lubavitchers were Lubavitchers. There wasn't a separate entity. They mixed with other people also.
But
Here
on
it
the,
became a one-man show.
But on the other hand, and I'm not a historian, but I believe that his house was a stopping station for most of the Gedolim of Eretz Yisrael who came to America. I know even Reb Noam, when he came to America, visited the Lubavitcher Rebbe and used to talk about stories. But I'm sure they could give you a list of hundreds of Rabbanim, Rosh Yeshivas, Gedolim, who his house was a way station for everybody who came to America. The Ger Rebbe, the Belzer Rebbe, they all stopped by. It was like you had to go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Okay. I don't believe that Reb Shmuel Chazovsky went there.
No, that I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I would agree with you that it's unlikely. We would agree that it's unlikely.
You told me that Reb Nachum went there. When did Reb Nachum go there? What year was that?
I don't know the year, but I remember the stories. When he met him, how the Olam tumbled about it, etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I ask you one question? Do you think, looking at the worldwide hashpah, I mean, there's over 5,000 Chabad houses in the world, right?
Yes.
They reach millions of people. I mean, millions a year, right?
Right.
Do you think that your father, looking back now, would say, look, I may not agree with, the fact that you say he maybe wasn't Mesiras with other Gedolim. Maybe he didn't like how they learned. Maybe he didn't like that they made a Yom Tif out of the Balatanyas, Yahatzola, etc. Do you think he would have looked back today at the 5,000 or so, basically in every state, 160 countries or something, or 50, whatever it is, and would have said, it's truly astonishing how much one person could have a hashpah in the world?
My father would definitely say that it is astonishing that someone that nature can have that hashpah, but it wouldn't change his Hashkafah on Lubavitch. Definitely not.
In other words, he still would be misnagid to the Derech HaLimud and to the Yom Tif that they create in Yeshivah.
And he'd be misnagid to the Kiruv also. My father would hold Kiruv has to be, I know a story with a conservative Jew came to my father that he has a child with a problem, and my father told the guy, okay, send your son to me and I'll work on him. She said, okay. So my father called in a bocher from the yeshiva. He says, this and this fellow is going to be coming. I want you to learn with him. You are not to give him any philosophy. All I want you to do is learn Chumash and Rashi, nothing else. That guy became frum.
Okay.
That was the Hashkafah that Torah is Magzin Mutav. Hamaor Sheba brings back a person, and you have to only have a Torah. You can't have people that don't know how to read a Gemara being busy with doing Kiruv.
But look at this. Doesn't the success speak for itself?
No.
Why not?
Why not? Because it's not bringing out what is supposed to be in Yiddishkeit. You're looking at it, they appreciate Yiddishkeit. Good, that's a very good thing, but that's not the purpose of Kiruv.
You're saying that the person who would have married out and would have had kids who are goyim, right? Who becomes, through assuming that they don't, I'm assuming everything you say, kol zachnis, they didn't learn with him, and he becomes frum, he's shayme Torah mitzvahs, he's shayme Shabbos, he sends his kids to a yeshiva. You're saying the fact that he didn't learn the right way and the fact that now he's Yidden, his kids are Jews, as opposed to he would have married out and the kids would be goyim. That is no,
I'm saying that's a beautiful thing, but that's not our obligation. Our obligation is through Torah. We are bound by what Torah tells us to do.
So let me ask you a question. If you could be Makarev 5 people through Torah, or 5,000 people not through Torah, which one would you do?
5 through Torah.
Rabbi Gifter, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Kalta, bye-bye.
Kalta.
We have on the phone with us from Siberia the Shaliach of Chabad, Reb Zalman Zaklos of Novosibirsk. Welcome, Reb Zalman.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome to Siberia.
Reb Zalman, where are you from originally?
I'm born in Israel, and I live now about 20 years in Novosibirsk.
So let me ask you, in Israel, the coldest temperature is around, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0. What do you do in Siberia when it becomes minus 50 or minus 40? What type of clothing do you wear? When it gets very, very cold in Siberia, you need special clothing, right?
Special clothing, yeah. Special clothing, and you have to learn a lot Torah to get a lot warm to go in the street. בכלל, בבתים מאוד מאוד חם, באמת מאוד מאוד קר, זה לא פשוט, זה באמת אתגר לחיות בסיביר, אבל יש לנו מטרה, המטרה היא באמת לקרב כל יהודי ולהגיע לכל יהודי, מישהו צריך להגיע לכל יהודי גם בסיביר.
Reb Zalman, how many Yidden are in Novosibirsk? How many Yidden are in Siberia today?
About 20,000 Jewish people in Novosibirsk.
And out of the 20,000, Reb Zalman, how many have you met?
About 7,000. We have a connection in the Jewish community.
Yeah. That's amazing. And what effect have you had? Have you seen a change? Are you able to make a change in these people's lives? Are you able to bring them closer to Yiddishkeit?
We try to make the best what we could to make. In Novosibirsk, we only built the new synagogue and Jewish community center only 6 years ago. And the Jewish people in Novosibirsk a long time doesn't see a synagogue and Jewish life, and we try to make the maximum.
Reb Zalman, do you have a cheder? Do you try to open up a school for the kids?
We have a school, not a cheder. We have Jewish school, and we have about 100 Jewish kids. We have a kindergarten. This is not a cheder. This is Jewish school.
Are you trying to make them Shomer Shabbos?
We try, of course. We try. We have a Jewish family, Shomer Shabbos, but a lot Jewish people, when they come to the Jewish life, they live into Israel. A lot of people.
Uh-huh.
Because it's very difficult to be a Shomer Shabbos in Siberia.
Do you have a minyan during the week or on Shabbos?
We have a minyan every day. Only Shachis.
Really?
Only Shachis.
Wow. And if you wouldn't be there, Reb Zalman, Lule, if you were not there, what would the 20,000 or the 7,000 Jews in Novosibirsk do?
It's a good question. I have a few Jewish guys. They come in to religion. They Yehudim Yereim Ushleimim. They help me. But אם לא היינו פה, לא היה שום דבר. לצערנו.
Reb Zalman, how many more Chabad shuls, Chabad houses are there in Siberia besides yours?
In Siberia right now, seven cities.
Who is the coldest? Mi achi kar from the 7?
Achi kar? I think maybe Novosibirsk. I think so.
Reb Zalman, how do you, when your Eishes Chayil and your Bnei Bayis look at you and they say, Reb Zalman, what are we doing in Novosibirsk? We miss Yerushalayim, we miss falafel, we miss the Shtibelach, we miss the Kaisel, we miss Kever Rachel. You brought us to Siberia. It goes down to minus 50 degrees. to get food. What do you tell them?
I tell you something interesting. My daughter, the old daughter, Chasi, she get a kale 2 weeks ago with a young man from Israel, and she told me I want to make the chasana in Novosibirsk.
Wow.
And in Yirtzeh Hashem, Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, we have the first chasana, big chasana, AMSA chasana, Yiddish Hasidish AMSA chasana. It's the first time in Novosibirsk. And my daughter.
Since when? In 50 years, 60 years, 70 years? How many years was the last Yiddish chasana in Novosibirsk?
I think the last 70 years. This is the first big חתונה. היה לנו כמה חתונות קטנות, אבל זה החתונה הגדולה, the bigger חתונה. It will be a lot of people, and she told me, I want to make the חתונה in Novosibirsk. She could make the חתונה in Israel, of course, because the chosen is from Israel. But she wanted to make the חתונה in Novosibirsk, and in Mesiras it will be in Novosibirsk. This is an example for you what my kids thinks about the Shaliach in Novosibirsk. They want to be in Novosibirsk because they feel the important, את החשיבות של השליחות בנובוסיבירסק. They saw so many people came to Jewish life, to Jewish to Torah, to mitzvahs, and they feel עד כמה זה חשוב, הם מרגישים שזה מאוד מאוד חשוב.
Question for you: when you came to Novosibirsk, was there a mikveh there?
No, nothing.
So how far did the people have to travel to go to a mikveh?
4 hours in the plane to Moscow.
You had to drive 4 hours in a plane to Moscow.
Yeah.
How many hours by car? How many hours by car?
I think 2 days. 2 days
by car. And what do you do? What did you do for? Are you makbid on Chalav Yisrael?
A lot of time we don't have Chalav Yisrael. About 7 years, and now we
those 7 years. Reb Zalman, those 7 years, what did you do? Did you not eat Chalav Yisrael?
Not eat Chalav. Not eat Chalav.
You didn't eat any milk.
Nothing Chalav.
You didn't eat any milk, and you have you didn't have any milchiks for 7 years. Did you have?
Yeah, for 7 years. Yes.
Did you have Did you have a shchita in Novosibirsk?
Shchita, I am a shochet. I make a chicken. I'm a shochet chicken. But now, Baruch Hashem, we have a flesh and a meat from Moscow.
And what do you do? What do you do for all the other kosher food? Where do you get it?
A lot of kosher food is not a problem because the fish we have a lot. Yerakot, peirot, fruit, we have this is not a problem. But fleshik we get.
And what do you do? Let's say for challah, bread, stuff like that.
Challah, it's my wife make it. We don't have challah. We don't have bread. Everything we make a lot by self in the house. My wife make it every day.
Reb Zalman, Maha matara shalcha. What is? If you had to say Zeha mission statement, Shali, what would you say?
Mission Shali, my mission is every Jewish will know what is be a Jewish. Every Jewish will come into synagogue. Every Jewish will come into to be shomer Torah mitzvahs. This is the mission. Kol od sheyesh Yehudi. If we have one single Jewish שלא יודע מה זה תורה ומצוות, עדיין יש לנו הרבה עבודה. We have a lot of working. להגיע לכל יהודי, by coming to every Jewish.
Reb Zalman, where did you get so much Mesiras? Where did you get so much Ahavas Yisrael from? מה המקור של אהבת ישראל שלך?
זה החינוך שקיבלנו בבית. Saba my Zayde, he was a Shaliach from a Friedeker Rebbe. He was in the jail 7 years. This is the chinuch was becoming in the house, in the home. זה היה החלום שלי להיות שליח של הרבי. וברוך השם, אנחנו 20 שנה בשליחס. I wait in the whole Jewish people to come into Novosibirsk to see, to be there. בעזרת השם בחתונה יהיו הרבה אורחים שיגיעו. A lot of guests will come into the Hasene. They see how is the Jewish life in Novosibirsk.
Okay.
נובוסיבירסק צריך להיות לא פחות מלייקווד או מקראון הייטס או בורו פארק. רוצים שזה יהיה גם קהילה יהודית כמו שצריך.
So, Reb Zalman, if we send packages from America to Russia, are you allowed? Can you get it by does customs allow it in?
Yeah, why not? Yes,
okay,
of course.
So, Reb Zalman, I am Belineda going to find the warmest coat that I could find on Patagonia or the internet. I'm sending it to you for a Chasana present. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Chozer, okay. Thank you very much, Reb Zalman.
The best present if you come. If you will come
to Siberia.
To the okay. See that.
Thank you, Reb Zalman.
Thank you very much.
Chozer. Take care. Bye-bye. We have the honor of having with us on the phone from Argentina, Rabbi Tzvi Grunblatt, who I believe is the head of the Shiluchim of Argentina. Welcome, Reb Tzvi.
Thank you. Thank you for all the listeners, and a good gebencht Jahr.
A good year. So, Reb Tzvi, how many years have you been in Argentina?
Actually, I was born in Argentina. I studied 8 years in Lubavitch in New York and in New Jersey. In Tovshin Lamed Ches, 1978, I was appointed by the Rebbe, that means 41 years ago, to come fill up the place of the previous Shaliach, Rav Doiver Baumgarten Olav Hasholem, that passed away suddenly.
And could you tell us, Rav Tzvi, in the 41 years that you've been there, what impact what changes have occurred?
What I can tell you is I was born here, and I know what was going on here before the big work of the Rebbe here in Argentina started. Here the the religious communities, the religious world was like shrinking. I used to daven in an Orthodox shul that every year, Yom Kippur, you saw less people coming into the shul. And when the first main thing that Lubavitch did was to show everybody that you could build up Torah and mitzvahs communities. You don't have to be afraid from people they're not inside Torah yet. Verkehrt, you have to bring them, and you can succeed. And this made a big change in the attitude of all other communities. They started, instead of becoming defensive, they started to become more actively and building. Let's say to this month, in a few days, is going to be 29 years since we dedicated our central building here in Buenos Aires, a building of 8 floors. Used to be 4,000 square meters, now is almost 7,500 square meters. And when we dedicated the building, the same week, 2 other institutions here, they were already 50, 70 years before us, they also started looking to make buildings, because they say, how come, if Lubavitch, without nothing, without no communities for so many years, without no memberships, without no money, they could succeed. Why can't we succeed? This is for one part of the story. The second part of the story is that we really, Baruch Hashem, managed to bridge to the general Jewish population. We managed, that means today it's very hard to find any circle in the Jewish community that doesn't have somebody that's coming to a shiur, somebody that is fulfilling some kind of Torah mitzvahs, and this is the product of our work, Baruch Hashem, that we started so many years ago. When we started, let's say, I started in 1978. 1980, we had a Lag BaOmer parade here in the street in Buenos Aires with 1,000 children. Definitely, these were not religious children. You didn't have 1,000 religious children in Argentina in 1980. These were from all the general schools that used to be here, and this from this, we start building till today. We have 35 Botei Chabad. We have 2,000 children learning in our Chinuch institution, 1,000 not religions and 1,000 Haredische Kinder. And this is, and the other point is, we are the institution that we broke the limits of Buenos Aires, because Judaism was just limited to Buenos Aires. And we today, we have 10 Botei Chabad all over the country, but it's not that we go for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We have a Shaliach in a city like Tucumán. It's 1.5 hours away by plane, very far from here, from Buenos Aires. Was there only one Jew, Shomer Shabbos, when we were there 41 years ago. And he's there from 38 years ago. His children still work there. They married and they work there. And now he's dedicating a new shul. In 2 months from now, they're building a new shul with a new mikveh there in the place. I mean, they had already a mikveh. That mikveh became small because so many people, Baruch Hashem, now going to mikveh. He's now ready dedicated. This going to all the country. This is a revolution that Baruch Hashem we succeeded. And just yesterday, 12 Bochrim came back from visiting 80 small cities where you have 5 families, 10 families, 15 families, Jewish I'm talking. They divided the country in 4 parts, these 12 Bochrim, and the 3 went with motorhomes. The 4th they went without motorhomes because you cannot get there with motorhomes the places. Covering the whole country, but this is not the first year we do it. We do this already for 20 years. We keep the contact. We even make bar mitzvahs for children. They are in those places where nothing is there. But you don't have to go so far. We have here a school outside of...
Yeah. How many Yidden are there in Argentina?
Let's say, halachically, I think that it's 150,000, 180,000, maybe 200,000.
And how many of those Yidden do you or your Shiluchim touch every year with a conversation, with a Pesach package, with a Shabbos meal? How many of those Yidden do your Shiluchim touch every year? What percentage?
I think at least 70,000. At least 70,000.
Reb Tzvi, what's the most remote area in Argentina where you have a Shaliach?
Bariloche in the south and Salta in the north. Salta is more than 2 hours away by plane from here. So
take Salta in the north. What does the Shaliach do there for Chol of Yisrael? What does he do for mikveh? What do they do?
For mikveh, they have to build a place. We are now working on to get. His wife has to travel 4 hours in a bus every month.
His wife has to go 4 hours to go to the mikveh.
Yeah.
And what do they do for Chol of Yisrael?
Okay, today you have a long, how do you say, milk that keeps for a long time. Long, I don't know the word.
Reb Tzvi, the Shiluchim, even in the...
But this is not the point. The point is the chinuch of the children. Okay. Their children, there they live in Salta, they get up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning to be in the online school and receive the Shiure Torah from Eretz Yisrael. Because the children don't speak English, they speak Hebrew. They have the Shiurim from Eretz Yisrael. And when they start the Shiurim in Eretz Yisrael at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 3 o'clock in the morning in Salta. They have to get up 3 o'clock in the morning to have the Shiurim, and they don't have the regular Chaverim with whom to play. This is the real Mesiras Nefesh.
Reb Tzvi, if your Shiluchim, I should say the Rebbe Shiluchim, wouldn't be in these locations like Bahia Blanca and Bariloche and Sutre, what would be there?
What gar nicht gewesen.
Eilam Atayu, would be Eilam Atayu.
Gar nicht, zero. Zero. Because I want to tell you something. The non-religious community, that we never fight with them, we try to explain them that we come to help everybody. We don't come to make fights. We don't come to make machlekes. We don't come for politics. We don't need members. We need to build Yiddishkeit. And they become stronger even in their way.
Reb Tzvi, how important is Taryag mitzvahs in the Torah? And everybody says the Mekayim all Taryag mitzvahs v'chulu. I want to talk about one mitzvah. The mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reyecha kamoicha, V'ahavas Yisrael. How important is that in Chabad?
I mean, this is important for the Eibishter. It's not important for Chabad. Ayit is bonim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. We just read it last week in the Torah. Ayit is a kind from the Eibishter. And when you're talking about the kind of the Eibishter, how important is it for any Jew? Any Jew, how important is it? You take care of the son of the kind of the Eibishter. How important is it?
Reb Tzvi, thank you very much for your time. Could you give us all a bracha?
The bracha gibt der Eibishter, a birchas kal. Al kolponim, first of all, the bracha is, erstens, man soll sicher sein zu der Geule, take of miyat mamish, it's enough golus. This is the first thing. The second thing is, the bracha is, we should be happy that we Jews, we fulfill Torah mitzvahs, and we go mechayel al choil, and we prepare the world for Mashiach, lesaken oilam b'malchus shin dalet yud, and we should do it happily, and also we should be inspired, because there is no copyright. Everybody has a power to inspire another Jew. Everybody. The Rebbe taught us, an aleph, go and teach an aleph to somebody else. You do a base, teach the base. Everybody, because every Leib Israel Eirhu, the Jewish heart is awakened. Is awakened, side from the inspirer and side from the inspired. In Meile, jetzt Chedesh Elul, darf man ausnutzen die Gelegenheit to be poil. Everybody has customers and friends on a good way, on a polite way, on a nice way. You get it. Und der Rebbe said, as kulonu ke'echot, we all Jews are together, comes automatically the Borcheinu Avinu Beir Ponecho, comes the blessing for the Eibishter in a shiny way, in a happy way, and in a good way.
Thank you very much, Rebbe Tzvi. Aksivach Simetaiva.
Your program should herald Moshiach when it comes to Miyat Mamish.
Amen. Kol tov HaGutyer.
Kol tov.
Thank you. We have on the phone with us from Istanbul, Europe. Really the corner, it's where Europe, Asia, and Africa meet, right, technically. Reb Mendy Chitrik. Welcome, Reb Mendy.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you.
So, Reb Mendy, you're an American, I take it, from your accent.
I'm a Yid. It happens to be. I'm an American citizen. That's correct.
Good. So, tell me about what's it like living in Istanbul as a Shaliach in Istanbul. I imagine that there's not a lot of Orthodox Yiddishkeit in Istanbul. Tell us what it's like coming from New York to Istanbul, like the shock that it must be.
I was actually born and raised in Tzvi.
Okay.
My parents were sent by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, just before I was born. They were sent to Tzvi. My parents run a teacher seminary, a very world-renowned Chabad, a teacher seminary in Tzvi. So I grew up in Tzvi, in Eretz Yisrael, and I moved here together with my wife, who is American, some 18 years ago. I am the rabbi of the Ashkenazi community of Istanbul, which is an ancient but small community here. You say that there's no Orthodox. There is actually. The community here is what I usually call a non-practicing Orthodox Judaism. In other words, people have in their mind the shul is a shul, the way it's supposed to be. And we have to encourage them to attend it and to follow the Torah mitzvahs as we know it. So that is what we have here.
Mendy, what hardships do you encounter as the rabbi of Istanbul, the Ashkenazi rabbi in Istanbul? What do you do for Chalav Yisrael? What do you do for Minyan? Tell us a little bit about what it's like.
Okay, so I really don't like to focus on the hardships because it's nicht schwer to sein a Yid. It's not hard to be a Yid. But there are challenges, and when we first came, Chalav Yisrael was one of the bigger challenges. I used to go out of the city every 2-3 weeks and milk a cow and bring it home, cook it, and then we got a pasteurizing machine and then separate the cream. It wasn't very palatable, but this was at the time. Now, Baruch Hashem, regard to Chalav Yisrael, it's much easier because with the time we have started providing to Turkish Airlines Chalav Yisrael mehadrin meals between 600 to 4,000 meals a day. So because of that, we Baruch Hashem have now a production of Chalav Yisrael and Gvinas Yisrael, everything, mehadrin and mehadrin. So those challenges is past.
So Mendy, when you didn't have Chalav Yisrael, right? Were there times that you didn't use Chalav Akum or Chalav Stam?
No. By us in Chabad, we borrowed the Rebbeim have borrowed the terms that is said about other milk. It says that Chalav Akum Mesamtem Es Alev, which is Vodan in the Ramo, about Lo Yinak Ben Israelis from the Akum, and they borrowed the term to refer to all Chalav Akum that is Mesamtem Es Alev. So no, we personally in our home have never used Chalav Akum. However, for the community, for the people who are not yet up to be mehader in all the mitzvahs, we made sure that the milk that they drink is supervised in a way that it is not safe milk. And we obviously, for them, we relied on the Pri Chodosh or Moshe, etc. But in our house, we have never compromised on any iota of halacha.
Never compromised on any iota of halacha. Mendy, do you have a challenge getting a minyan during the week?
In Istanbul, there are 18 functioning shuls on Shabbos and 6 shuls which are open every single day, Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv. So no, we did not have a challenge of having a minyan. Those here, or some Yidden here, out of the 15 or 18,000 Yidden that live in Istanbul, there are about 700 shul goers who go every day, or on Shabbos they go to shul. So there are quite a few minyanim in the town.
So what effect did you have? What effect have you had? Like tell us, you and your Rebbe were there for 18 years. How did the community change because of you?
I will tell you what. It is, as I said before, it's hard to measure. But Baruch Hashem today, we have in Eretz Yisrael people who moved from here, close to probably 100 to 120 families who moved to Eretz Yisrael to live a full observant life in Eretz Yisrael and established shuls and communities in Eretz Yisrael. And this is something that has not happened before. But we are not measuring it. We try to measure success. I'll give you just an example. A few months ago, a lady came to my office to talk to me. She says she was Muslim, but she wants to confide about something. And she pulls out a recording of her grandmother, her late grandmother, that became senile a few months before she died. And she spoke in a language which they couldn't understand. And she plays the recording, and it's Yiddish. I said, that's your mother's mother. She speaks Yiddish. How is that? She said, we don't know. So we made a long research. We found out that her grandmother was actually born in Krakow, moved at the age of 5 to Brussels. At the age of 20, the war broke out. And she went hiding in France. And after the war, she moved to Turkey without telling anybody that she was ever Jewish, changed her name, didn't tell anybody anything about her past.
Wow.
This Pesach, 8 Yidden from this family, this old grandmother's 2 daughters, and their kids, and the grandkids, they sat at a Seder table.
Wow.
8 Yidden that 7-8 months ago did not even know that they were Jewish.
Wow. Wow. Gewaldige story.
Can I say that they have become immediately fully Shomer Shabbos, observant and everything? No. But that's a step. It's a major step. And that is something that's a fresh story that just happened.
Can you share another story? That's a gewaldige story. Can you share another one? This is frisch gebacken and bright. Let's hear an older story.
There are many of them. I'll tell you 2 more stories. One story which I just shared 2 weeks ago at Chof. There was the passing of the Rebbe Leibel, Schneur, and the father of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was buried in Almaty, Kazakhstan. And I was honored to come to Kazakhstan and to speak in front of the important oilam there. And I shared with him a very, very gewaldige story. There was an old lady came to my house quite a few years ago, and she brought me a bag of Sporim to throw to Shemus, to Geniza. Happens often. Usually people bring Sidurim, Chumoshim. I don't even bother look at it. But this time I opened the bag, I looked through Sidurim, Chumoshim, the regular Shemus, and there was a Sefer. And the Sefer is a Shulchan Aruch Harav, printed in Zitomer. How does the Shulchan Aruch Harav printed in Zitomer come here? And there's a stamp in it. The stamp in the Sefer says, Kehilas Ashkenazim be'Izmir.
Wow.
I never knew there was an Ashkenazi community in Izmir. Oh, interesting. I looked through the Sefer, and in the last page it says, Shayach laharav Reb Levi Schneur. That this Sefer belongs to Reb Levi Schneur. In the front page, there's a signature, Levi Yitzchak. That was the name of the Rebbe's father.
Wow.
And I remember that I once saw a letter from the Sridei Eish concerning his library that he lost during the war. He had a huge library in Berlin, and he heard that the part of it was found later in Prague. So he was discussing if he wants his library back, and somebody told him, "Shot for no, there was a use. You already gave up on it. You lost ownership.
Right.
You automatically relinquished ownership by being miyayish from it." So he writes that he found a smachta in one of the Rishonim that on everything there is yush, besides on a sefer. A sefer there's no use because a sefer eventually comes back to its rightful owner.
Wow.
So this was a sign for myself. Look, sometimes you could sit in Turkey, and not always it's all pleasant and exciting and gewaldige stories. And sometimes you feel it's a mundane. You work on another person to put on a pair of tefillin. You get another person to light the Shabbos candles, to make another mitzvah and another mitzvah. And you feel, is this what I'm called for? And sometimes Hashem Yisrael sends you a message. You're in the right place. The Sefer came back. You're there.
So you saw this sort of like a symbol of your own shlichus, like the Rabbi Shalom. It says like by Yosef, when they took him away, the Besamim on the journey was a simon that the Rabbi Shalom is saying this Sefer from Reb Levi Yitzchak sent to you was sort of like a simon min hashamayim on your shlichus.
That's correct. That's exactly it. Sort of, a Lubavitcher feels that in a way, he's a Shaliach of the Rebbe, even though the Rebbe Moshe begins in Meroimim, but it's in a Shema Mushal. We feel that we are Shiluchim of the Rebbe. We're doing what the Rebbe wants from us, or wanted from us. And here was a sign that here the Rebbe has still a bastion in Turkey. The book, his own book came back there. That's a hergish, it's something I tell.
Well, it's fabulous that you are you're taking over the Rabbistava of Rabbi Yehuda Rosenes, yeah? The Mishnah Melech was Rav, like you say, in Constantinople and Istanbul. So you're the mamshech. You have you stand in the shoes of the Mishnah Melech.
So who am I to stand in the shoes of the Mishnah Melech? V'mokim gdolim al tamoid. Of course, it's not up to us. But I was actually had the zchut also to find the kever of the wife of the Mishnah Melech, the Rebbe of the Mishnah Melech, that wasn't even brought anywhere that she even existed, and we found it. It says on the kever that she was his wife. Unfortunately, the kever himself of the Mishnah Melech has been lost. We know the approximate area, but the Maseva is not there anymore.
Well, it's an honor to have you on with us. It's a big schus to speak to somebody who does such work with Mesiras Nefesh. Rebbe Mendy, thank you very much for your time.
I thank you very much for having me, for listening, and I hope that the Hashem will all here in Medina will all come and meet each other before the new year.
Amen. Amen. Kol tov Rebbe Mendy.
We have on the phone with us from Uganda, Africa, Rabbi Raskin, Rabbi Moshe Raskin. He's the Shaliach to Uganda. Welcome, Rabbi Moshe.
Thank you very much. Welcome to you.
What's it like living in Uganda?
It looks like special. You know, you are in a place, not in a normal place that we know from the countries that we grow up in Israel or in the USA. So you feel it. You stay in a special place, and but in this special place, our special mission that we're doing. So we're feeling good with it. You know, we came to a place that not exist anything about Judaism before. When we came here 2 years ago, nothing was here. And thank God, today we have a big Chabad house and synagogue and community activities, you know, like a big Jewish life. And this is special feeling. So you feel, if, let's say in bottom line, the feeling is like light, they come from darkness. This is the feeling that I feel in my heart every second.
And are there Yidden in Uganda?
Yeah. Do you know that exists Yidden everywhere? But in Uganda exists also Yidden, Jewish people. There is also people that come here for make business. The most of the people is from outside. They came here to make business, or tourists, or people that came here for volunteer with the local communities. So together we have a community of souls, of neshamot, of Jewish people.
How many Yidden are there in Uganda?
So for now exist around 80 people that live here all the time.
And what do you do for food?
What do you do for food? So the most of the food, like meat or milk or, chocolates, all the things that special for now we bring from Israel. There's also things that exist here, with the famous sharing, like the OU and those things. So we buy here and every day we find another new kosher stuff that exists here. But the general things that like meat or milk or those stuff we bring from outside of the country, for now from Israel and sometimes from South Africa and from Europe. So this is the situation now.
And what do you do for chinuch of your children?
It's a good question. So for now, thank Baruch Hashem, we have 3 children, 3 boys. The big one is more than 3 years old, 3.5. And for now, we start his day with his mother in a special kindergarten in the Chabad house for him and for his younger brother, 2 children now. And with the help of Rabbonim, we send them for a few hours to be in an international school for this time, just for have friends for a few hours, and then they come back. For sure, they don't eat anything there. And I think in another 2 or 3 years, my son will start to learn in.
What do you do? When you came? Was there a mikveh?
No, not exist mikveh.
So how far did you have to travel to go to the mikveh?
Or 1 hour to Kenya, to or to South Africa, that is around 4 hours from Uganda.
Is that by car or by plane?
No, it's by plane.
You have to travel 4 hours by plane or an hour by plane to go to a mikveh.
Yes, exactly.
And do you feel safe? Is there any area? Do you feel in danger at any point?
Yeah, I feel very safe. Uganda, from the most of the country in Africa, this is the safe country, and I feel safe. You not feel that you're one of these parts of the world. You feel different, but I have to say that we feel safe. Everything is fine.
And do you feel, Ramesha, do you feel that you're making a difference?
Yes, we do the difference very well. Thank God. Now we have in almost every Shabbat we have minyan. Shabbat in the night, Shabbat in the day, and we have a big Shabbat meal. And also the Jewish businessmen that stay here that never was touched with Judaism in the normal way, and now feel that Judaism is not so worse, and feel a little bit even to start to like the Judaism. You know what you can. Which revolution could be more than that? And also the young guys that come here stay with us, for Torah classes and deep philosophic Judaism Torah classes. So you feel for sure that you make the difference.
Well, Ramesha, thank you very much, and Hashem Yasliach Darkecha.
Thank you very much. Also, a lot of success to you, and Ktiva v'chatima tova, l'shana tova metuka. All the best.
Bye-bye.
We have on the phone with us from Melbourne, Australia, Reb Chaim Tzvi Groner. Welcome, Rav Groner.
Thank you.
Rabbi Groner, could you tell us what was the community like when you started, and what's it like now?
Okay, so I'm a second generation Shaliach here in Australia. I came here as a baby with my parents, Litvish and Lubavitch, who were sent by the Rebbe back in 1958. Actually, my father first came to Australia in 1947 by the previous Rebbe on a first visit, on a first trip, and then came a second trip in 1954, and then came here for a few years originally in 1958, and stayed here for 50 years until he passed away. So when he first came in 47, so there were no Mesiras here yet, no Yeshivas, almost nothing. But there was a family here by the name of Feiglin. Rabbi Zalman Feiglin was the patriarch of that family, and he was a Lubavitcher Chozer. And he was instrumental in bringing out a group of Lubavitcher Chassidim who had come out of Russia at the end of the 40s. They came to Australia in 49, and they were the ones who started up the Mesiras Chabad here. They founded a day school for the boys in 1949. Then the Rebbe said there has to be a day school for the girls. We started in 1956. And
how big are the Mesiras today?
Today, the Mesiras, the boys' school and the girls' school all together, with the preschool, about 1,300 students.
1,300. Rabbi Groner, if the Mesiras were not there, what would these kids? I shudder
to think what would be.
How many of these 1,300 kids would be in the yeshiva if it weren't for the Mesiras?
In a Jewish day school.
How many of these kids would be in Jewish schools? Of the thousands of kids who've gone through your Mesiras would be there if you hadn't opened the day school there?
That's a very hard question to answer because, first of all, so many of them, because our school caters also for people who are not necessarily affiliated with Chabad, and even those who are not from. It's always this is what the motto of Chabad is, right? To foratsta, to reach out to everybody. But Baruch Hashem, we have already in our school parents who they themselves grew up in our Mesiras. and some of them are even your grandchildren. But we still have people from the outer community, the non-Chabad community, who come into our school. Now, we do have our other day schools here. There is an Adas Yisrael, and which is, of course, Haredi. We have Yisraeli Atayra, that's called. There's also Haredi. And you have a Mizrahi day school, Yavne College. And, in fact, there are a lot of day schools over here. And per capita, the percentage of Jewish children going to a Jewish day school in Melbourne, Baruch Hashem, is very high. But of course, it depends to what degree of Yiddishkeit they're getting in the day school. But there's no question that our school was a forerunner in Jewish Torah education here for 70 years already.
Can you tell us, if you had to encapsulate into one paragraph, what is your mission statement? What would it be?
The mission statement is, in one paragraph, first of all, to reach out to all Yidden in Australia in regards to Yiddishkeit and to Chinuch, first of all, of children, boys and girls, mitzvahs ma'asos in their own homes. And we have also here a Yeshiva Gedola, right, for the boys who have already graduated from high school. We have a girls' seminary in Oyel Chana for the girls, and we have also a kollel. The Rebbe also expressed to Shiluchim of the Yeshiva Gedola and to the first group of kollel young guys who came out here. We just celebrated the 40th anniversary of our kollel. Kollel Menachem Lubavitch, as it's called, and the Rebbe said that we have to einnehmen Australia durch Limud Torah, to conquer Australia with Limud Torah, with Torah learning, and Shmiras HaMitzvahs, and to be a lighthouse, to be Neiros Lahoyer, which is already what the Rebbe Rashab said that the Talmidim of the Lubavitcher Yeshiva Tzvi should be. And this is Baruch Hashem, which has been done for the past 70 years here in Australia.
Rabbi Grunblatt, could you share with us
to prepare the world, the Rebbe says now, Lekabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Amen. Can you share with us one or two nice stories? You must have a lot of stories. You're a Rav for so many years in a distant part of the world. People who have, Mamish, Nidchei Yisrael, it's the corner of the world, Australia, 24 hours from New York. Share with us a story of somebody whose life you touched.
I'll share a story which my father told over.
Okay.
Because that was in the earlier days, and with greater challenges, etc.
Okay.
Just one short story, which is a beautiful story, and that is that one of the Talmidim in the school, who came from non-observant parents, even though that the parents were Holocaust survivors, but they had come here. We have a very large community of Holocaust survivors. Many are still with us. Unfortunately, many more passed on. Anyway, and they came to our school and became the child of the Talmud himself became, a Shemitah Mitzvah, and he went home and he tried to bring home the message of Shmiras HaTorah Mitzvahs in the home, which with great challenges. And the story was that one time the father came to my father's office and with a huge complaint. And the complaint was his son was already older and he wanted his son to help him out in his business and he wanted to make him a partner in the business. And he said, the son said, before I finished, I can't do that because you're open on Shabbos and Yom Tov. There's no way that I could be a partner, even though you're my father, in a business which is open Shabbos and Yom Tov. So he came with a big, huge complaint. He says, this is what I get for sending my child to the Yeshiva day school. So my father's response was, Baruch Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'giyanu v'zman hazeh. He was very proud He said, and of course he explained, my father, those who knew him, he was a very, very gentle, kind, understanding person. He was a very strong person, and but he was very warm, extremely warm, and he explained to the father that he should look at it in a positive way, not in a negative way, and this is exactly what the whole purpose of establishing the Yeshiva Day School is, to bring children to Shmiras HaTorah and Mitzvahs, and that they should also have an effect on their parents.
Well, Reb Chaim Tzvi, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
Let's go to the chosen winner of this week's riddle.
The Meach in Hilchos Chiros, Perek Zayin Halacha Aleph, deals with the interesting question of someone who rents a house from his friend, and Mekabel on himself achrayut from the lake that there's a fire in the house that he's renting, that he'll have to pay for the house to be rebuilt. And the person who rents this also takes out insurance against insurance, and then the house burns down. So can the owner both get money from the renter and also from the insurance company? And the worst of that is yes, he can get paid both from the renter